Happy New Year. Welcome to the 384th episode of the Random Podcast from Heck. This is the podcast about random things in the world of entertainment, which normally includes movies, TV shows, and comic books. More on that, just a second. A big shout out to Andrew Loken. He is a big and awesome supporter. You can be a supporter and be awesome as well by going to patreon.com/jmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the Secret Podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of extra podcast entertainment every single week. Last week I did an off of my topic about about mental health and therapy with superheroes and how, it kind of trickles into like real life and all that. The superheroes, they got a lot of weight on their shoulders. They're dealing with a lot. So we kind of talk about some characters that need some help. I hope someone does something, one of their, quote unquote comic book friends or whatever. And I'll talk about old comic books, classic comic books. This week I'll probably go back to Amazing Spider-Man from the mid 70s, the John Romita Sr., Stan Lee era, and just whatever I can come up with. If you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or two. And that's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. And just a reminder, if you choose to use the iOS app for Patreon, Apple will charge you a 30% upcharge. I also have, old Off My Mind episodes available for purchase, which is the same price of a virtual coffee. Go use a browser if you're going to go, sign up for Patreon or do anything there. Save you 30%. So what's going to happen this week? So I debated. So I kind of mentioned there's no movie feature this week. I was going to do a complete unknown. I think I mentioned that last week. I'm really curious to see the movie. I want to see it. I'm not. I don't know if I mentioned this. I'm not the biggest Bob Dylan fan. I have a lot of respect for him. Some of his stuff is great. Some of it, it's not quite my cup of tea. But and Timothy Chalamet is awesome. He's an amazing actor. But I kind of debated. Even though I haven't seen the movie, my daughter really liked it. And I talked to her a little bit about it. I was kind of thinking, what is there really for me to talk about on the podcast? So, this is like this is like a biography, a biopic, whatever. I just feel like sometimes there's not a whole lot to say. It's like, oh yeah, great performances. The closing was cool, and this was, So I debated. I decided, save myself $15. Not going to see it, and I don't even know if it's something that needs to be seen on the big screen. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think it's like, oh, you need the sound system for the music and everything like that. So I'm going to hold off on it, and I will see it at a later date. But I decided not to go. The kind of deciding factor also is with Squid Game coming out at the end of the previous week. I was like, okay, this is my last week of winter breaker, and even though I had so much to do with report cards and grading and stuff like that, but I was like, all right, I can start Squid Game, but then what am I gonna do? My usual 1 to 2 episodes per week for 8 weeks, and then it's so far late, after the fact when all the episodes have aired. So I was like, I'm gonna really push through it and really try to watch the entire thing, and I did. I managed to watch all the episodes. I was up really late, some nights, just because, like I said, just other stuff to do. So we're going to talk about Squid Game 2. That's going to be the main thing. Now, I'll do some big spoilers. There's definitely stuff we are going to do spoilers. I definitely need to talk about the ending. But when we get to that point later in the show, I'm going to kind of I'll do non-spoiler thoughts and talk about things, and then give plenty of warning. Then we could go into the spoiler territory. Now with I think it was 7 episodes, right? I'm not going to do the full on in-depth. It's so tempting, but that's going to be such a long, it's going to make such a long episode. And I don't know if people, I still always debate, do people need that? Do they want that? And my thoughts on it is, if someone is interested enough in whatever show or something like that, but maybe they don't have the time, or maybe they're just not subscribed to, and I know it's hard for me to understand, but there are some people that really want the spoilers. And that just blows me away because I'm like so anti-spoiler, but I know that there's a lot of people that they want to hear spoilers, and some people like that, and for different reasons. So I kind of look at it as if you're interested and you want to hear like a recap, it's kind of like a maybe more detailed recap, but that way also is like, did you miss anything? Is there anything? And every once in a while, I do throw in tiny thoughts or different things like that, my opinion, and so forth. But I'm going to try my best to keep it a little less incredibly detailed, because otherwise I'll be here all day until tomorrow, and obviously I need to record this and do other things. So we'll do that. Now, other things we also have, so that's going to be like a big thing. It's going to be probably, a longer, we'll see how long it takes me to talk about Squid Game. We also have Silo, which is that show is almost making me antsy. Just what just the crazy stuff happening. Then we have Star Wars Skeleton Crew. This show is like, it baffles me. It's really good, and it's weird because the focus is on these kids, which you know how I feel about kids, but sometimes it's like they can be annoying, but it also adds like a different element to it because it's not you don't have that arrogance or that experience or something like that. So it is bringing us like something else, and thank goodness it's not like as cringy as like Phantom Menace with kids and stuff like that. Then we have last week's Creature Commandos. So I believe I'm a week behind. I think there's 2 left. 1 or 2 left or something like that. So we'll catch up there. We got comics and just a tiny bit of news. So just as I kind of feared, unless I missed stuff, but with the beginning of the year, I think people are still like, taking time off. We had the New Year celebration and everything like that. So there's not as much happening in the news. It's just like one thing, Bill Skarsgård, this isn't really news at all, but he was just on a podcast. I forget which one it was. And it came up. This is, again, totally nothing official here, but it came up like, what did he think about, what's he think about Marvel, DC? And I think he said that he kind of grew up like with, DC per kid or something like that, or Batman like that. And then just for fun, they're like, well, who would you want to play, Batman or Joker or something like that? He said something about, the Joker is much more interesting. He thinks that there'd be like a cool Joker in him. And, you look at the roles that he plays, of course, while, what is it, Boy Kills World? That he could play the hero, but also he plays these dark roles. And so he thinks that, it'd be pretty sick to play, a different Joker. And he also mentioned like Heath Ledger, that Joker, because obviously that was great and everything like that. Yeah, if James Gunn's listening, although the thing is, I really don't want Joker anytime soon. I feel like we've seen too much Joker, and yeah. What about Jason Momoa? So for the longest time, they're like, Jason Momoa, Lobo, and he's expressed interest, and he pretty much said, he's like, hey, if you want me to try out or do it, he's like, just give me a call or something like that. And then he posted, he's like, they called. So he is going to play Lobo, and he's going to appear in the Supergirl movie. He's like, okay, that's fine. Now, so you can tell there's a little bit of like in my voice. And the thing is, I used to love Lobo when I first started reading comics. And, I'm sure I've mentioned several times, I have this like Randy Bowen statue, which I still have. I think it's just really incredibly detailed. It's like so cool. But then it just got to be the point where Lobo, to me personally, just started getting like extremely annoying. And he's got this tough guy attitude, and he's the bastage, whatever. He can take on anyone. He doesn't back down from anything. But it just, I don't know if it was just like too much arrogance, or it's just started getting to be annoying. And I think there was a time where he just started getting like overused, and it was just, I was just like, Lobo overload, and then I was just like, I don't want to read Lobo comics, and I stopped. When they did the New 52, that was so bizarre, like what they did with Lobo, but then they kind of explained things that, okay, this was Lobo, but it wasn't Lobo, and then they kind of, I don't know if that was always the intention or if they tried to fix things or whatever, but I thought that made things kind of interesting for a while, just to like really mix things up, like what the heck is going on. But yeah, so we'll see how how Jason. I do what I will say is I think Jason Momoa will be definitely a way better Lobo than he was Aquaman. And his Aquaman was fine. His Aquaman was really good. Let's be straight with that. I obviously have big issues with all of those, the Justice League characters, portrayals, and certain things, storylines written, how things were. But Jason Momoa, he did give us a really interesting interpretation of Aquaman that kind of elevated him, because a lot of times, people just think Aquaman's a dork, even though he's not. So Jason Momoa was able to elevate that a little bit and add some more oomph to the character that made him cool, even though that's not really who Aquaman is, but it was an interesting take. But Jason Momoa playing Lobo, yeah, I'm down for that. So we'll see how that goes. There's a trailer for Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and I'm a little torn about this. Yes, I love Spider-Man, and yes, I love animated Spider-Man shows for the most part. But I love the Leonardo Romero designs. It has such a just slick, just look to it and everything. I'm not really sure what they're doing with this, and I'm always so baffled by this, where they just completely change things, and I'm assuming the reason is because they don't just want to do the same thing over and over again, because then it's like almost like, what's the point? It just becomes like repetitive. But I really wish, like with the style and everything like that they just went for like the 60s, like what I'm talking about, like on a secret podcast, like just this John Romita Sr. era, or even like going before that, like Steve Ditko, just seeing, because that's the vibe that we have. We have a younger Peter Parker, so he's still in high school, and which would predate the John Romita Sr. Era. But I think just having seeing Gwen Stacy or even the introduction of Mary Jane and all that could be really cool, just to really capture that feel. But they're mixing things up a bit, and they're making some changes. And one thing is having Nico from Runaways the same age as Peter Parker, which is weird. It's like, okay, why? I mean, is it you were looking to? I'm assuming they wanted to diversify the cast, because Peter Parker's friends were, for the most part, mostly white. I'm trying to think, like, when did Randy first appear? And I don't think it was for a while. So so now we have, they're like, okay, let's bring in an Asian character. So we have Nico, and I don't even know who else they're going to have. But the other thing is, you notice, and I think you get a glimpse. I'm trying to think of how close attention I paid to the trailer. But Norman Osborn, I believe, is black now, and this kind of brings into. So while I don't like Spider-Man wearing like a hockey jersey, it just seems weird. It does appear that he will be getting a suit, but it almost looks like the Future Foundation, with the white and black suit that he had. So we'll see what they do with that. I'm definitely going to check that out. But this kind of goes into something that Bo DeMaio, the guy that got let go from Marvel Animation, Marvel Studios, because he was sharing inappropriate things or making inappropriate comments or whatever, which he says he did, allegedly doing all this stuff. But one of the things he had to say, and I don't know who asked his opinion, or maybe he just put it out there, like on Twitter or X, whatever, and people just picked up on it. But he was basically saying, "Hey, Marvel Studios, stop race swapping villains." And he's basically calling out the fact that a lot of villains are being turned into black characters. And he's saying how now it's like the heroes are beating up on the black man or something like that. So here we go into like this big frustrating debate. They change the race of characters from time to time to diversify things. We need that. Well, I mean, actually, I don't even know if we need that so much as just create more characters. Why try to erase the past or recreate the past when you can just add new characters? Because like I said, I brought up Randy Robertson. When did Randy Robertson first appear? He wasn't there for the first Midtown days, I don't think. But then he was introduced, and he became a friend of and we had Glory Grant and everything like that. So they did mix things up, but to all of a sudden change a character, and like now suddenly, oh, this character is this race or something like that. And it's one thing if so, like what Bo DeMaio was saying. He mentioned. So I don't know if he mentioned the Norman Osborn thing, but I think he may have mentioned like Kang and High Evolutionary being changed. But with Kang, with Jonathan Majors, this is the big question. Did Marvel Studios go out and they're like, okay, we want to hire, when they put out the casting call sheets, calling all the agents, whatever, it's like, we're looking for a black actor or a minority character or Hispanic, what exactly did it say? Did it say, like, we want a black man to play this character, Kang the Conqueror or whatever variant, whatever you want to call him? Or did they say, okay, we have this character audition, and then you got a slew of, white, black, brown, yellow, purple, green, whatever, all different colored male actors applying for it. And then maybe of those actors, because Jonathan Major is a good actor, say what he does in his personal life. I can't speak to that part of his character, but he is a good actor. He delivers a great performance. So he could have easily nailed his audition. Or maybe Marvel's like, okay, this is the best black actor that audition, or this is the best actor period that audition. What's the case? And with High Evolutionary, that was just it seemed like that's more of a James Gunn thing, because he had worked. I forget the actor's name, but he'd worked with them before, and James Gunn tends to cast a lot of the people he's worked with before because he knows what they're capable of, and so that makes sense. Yeah. I don't know. And then there's the other thing also, where a lot of times actors say they would rather play the villain because the villain characters are more interesting. They have more layers versus the hero is just a lot of times just very two-dimensional. But then the other thing is, like, who asked you? No one needs your opinion on that. And if it's such a big problem, then these black actors should not be taking the roles of villain if they're being subjected or stereotyped or whatever. It's like, no, they're happy to get a job. And again, my question is, what do the casting sheets say? Does it specifically mention a race, or is it just open and then that's just the best person that auditioned? I don't know. Bo DeMaio, this is how low we are on news. There's nothing else. He also was vocal about What If Season 3. And I think he's like, what if Season 3? Yikes. And which just seems incredibly rude. It's one thing if you're watching it as a fan. Like, if I were to watch it, and I can say, oh, this was great, or this is not so great. But if you're in the industry, I don't think it's really a good call to be critiquing other things. It's just like, if you're a film director, I don't think you should be, giving reviews on other movies. You can say, like, oh, this was really cool. I don't think you should be criticizing other things unless someone asks for it. If you're a comic book writer or a comic book artist, I don't think you should have a blog like reviewing comics. Because I think that just, and the plus the fact that you can just really alienate a lot of people in the industry. Do you plan on still trying to get a job? Does Bo DeMaio, who's going to want to work with Bo DeMaio? All these people that he's insulting? Say what you will about, people still worked on writing it, whatever. And I think he's like, oh, I would have watched it more and I could have given notes. But it's like, no one asked for that. So that just seems unprofessional. And it's like, what are you trying to do? You're stirring up all this controversy. And I don't know if that's what he's doing, if that's the only gig he can get right now. But the way he parted ways with Marvel, whether he was in the right or in the wrong, by going after it, it just sounds very petty. And like, he's just like targeting Marvel, and he's complaining. He's like, oh, I'm an expert because I did X-Men, and so I can say if the other thing is good or bad or whatever. And I'm not here to defend What If, because I never finished season 2. It just wasn't working for me. And part of it, I'm on the fence if I like the animation or not, because it seems a little weird. And it's not bad, but something about it just doesn't quite work for me. And some of the stories were, they're okay, they're fine. And with season 3, I just didn't get around to, I never finished season 2. I would like to watch it at some point. But honestly, I tend to forget about it when it comes out. And also, like the way they've been doing it, I think they did the same thing last year where they didn't necessarily drop all episodes at once. But I think what they were doing this year is kind of like a 12 Days of Christmas type of thing where they were dropping a new episode every day. That's kind of cool and all that. I just, you know how I feel about that. It's like, just don't dump it all at once because then no one talks about it. The news outlets, the review outlets, they're not going to be able to keep up with this daily stuff most likely, and then it's just going to get buried because then it's going to be like, well, this isn't newsworthy anymore because this is from 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. That's another reason why I couldn't keep up with it, and so I didn't. So, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like he should be talking about things, especially when there's all this controversy about his work ethics or whatever, alleged work ethics. So I don't know. But then the last bit of news. So I'm sure I've rambled. I've managed to somehow drag this on way longer than it should be because there's like I said, literally no news. But it's almost practically confirmed that Charlie Cox Daredevil is going to be in an Avengers movie. And this, here's a confirmation. Apparently, this Australian fitness center where Charlie Cox and I think his wife, I don't know if he's married. I thought they mentioned his wife, or I saw the image where they're like, oh, it was great having him. He was in training for his upcoming Avengers movie, and we look forward to seeing him on the big screen. Whoops. So, because I don't know where he's at with Daredevil. Like, is he finished with that? Is all that filmed and now it's just post editing, whatever? But now if he's working out because he's going to be in Avengers, is that true? Yeah. So someone's going to get in trouble. Like what Marvel's, they can't tell. The fitness center's not going to get in trouble, but they may tell people, okay, don't go to this place to work out because they're on our no list. So, yeah, we have that. And there is one last bit of news. I don't have this. I don't know if there's specifics to this, but there's going to be a Squid Games 3 in 2025, and we can talk more about that when we get to Squid Games 2. But that is going to be the news for the week. With comic books, there was nothing at Dynamite or Boom that I read. It was kind of light. With some publishers, I'm assuming just because New Year's Eve and first week and everything like that. So I think that makes sense. You don't want to put a lot when people may not be going to the stores, even though some people may be looking for something to read, something to do. But at Image, there was a Radiant Black trade paperback, Volume 6. So you should be reading that. I wish I was reading Saga 71. Holy cow, that's awesome that it's at issue 71. Someday. Maybe when I retire and have nothing to do, I will just get caught up on that series. Then the only other thing is Walking Dead Deluxe, and I need to get caught up because I think it was 102. There's one issue that I missed, and I need to just get caught up again because this is what happened before. So now this week 104 came out, and I just need to. I've been enjoying rereading the colored versions of these. So yeah, I need to. I need to get caught up on those. What do you think about the deluxe versions? Are you reading them? Did you read them before? Are you rereading them? I'm always curious to what other people think about that. At Marvel, we had Avengers 22. This cover, I feel like this week, I don't know if it was all at Marvel, but there's some misleading covers. There's someone else had a misleading cover. I was like, wait, that didn't really happen. But if you look on the cover of Avengers, it says meet the newest member of the Avengers, and we have Black Cat on there. That is false. I will spoil that right now. She is not a member of the Avengers at this point. Will she be? I don't know. And I think it could be cool because Jed MacKay, if you have not read Jed MacKay's Black Knight or Black Cat, I got Black Knight. Black Knight keeps popping into my mouth. The second time it happened, I think it was last week. I said that too. Jed MacKay's Black Hats. There's I think 2 volumes. One I forget the number of issues, but then it relaunched with a new number 1. They're just fantastic. I just love Jed MacKay is just an amazing writer. I love what he does. So it's great that he's bringing back Black Cat because he did such a great job with the character, and but she's not quite here. Maybe right now it's more like she may be an obstacle with what the Avengers are trying to accomplish, but probably what's going to happen is they're going to work together, maybe. But we'll have to see. So there's definitely some cool things in this issue, because what it comes down to, and as you're reading this and you look at the cover, it's like, oh, the Avengers are going on this heist. That's cool. But then it's like you're waiting. It's like, well, are they going to call Black Cat? I mean, do they even have her phone number? Like Tony Stark had some run-ins with her, so possibly. So we have some cool stuff to look forward to. But I just want to say that cover, a little misleading. Cable, Love and Chrome, #1. The Cable comics lately, I've been like, we had that one last week, the Cable and Bishop, and I really wanted to get into it, but I just, there was, I don't know, something off. It was like just too, not convoluted, but when we got all this future stuff, and it's like, okay, is this really future? Is this so? It just sometimes it's just too much, and I just it just doesn't flow right for me. So I was like, I don't know if we got another Cable comic. Where is this going to be? When is the last time I enjoyed a Cable comic? I can barely remember that. But then it's like, oh, David Pepose is writing it. Okay, maybe I'll check that out. Oh wait, who Henderson? Mike Henderson's doing art? Okay, where's that comic at? Let me read it. And it was good. So it's interesting because when you read it, and unless I missed something at the beginning, part of it is like, when the heck is this taking place? And that's one of the cool things about Cable. I would think that's one of the cool things about writing Cable, is you almost don't have to worry about that. Cable, because of the time travel stuff, I feel like there's just so many unseen adventures that he's been on, or missions, or whatever you want to call it. So many stories, and it's if you got like the whole time stream, he could be all over the place, and so we kind of see some, and he kind of meets some people with like similar condition, and it kind of like opens his eyes on something like oh, I never talked to anyone like this, and so I really enjoyed the story and where it was, even though I was like, oh, here we go, Cable again. And, because I used to really like Cable, and then, I don't know, it just started to get to be like just the same thing over again or whatever. Oh, here's the other comic that is a lie. Daredevil #17. You see on the cover, Daredevil versus Bullseye. Again, unless I missed something, there is no Bullseye whatsoever in this comic. Because when I first saw this cover, I was like, wait, isn't Bullseye in like Madripoor in Spider-Boy? Yeah, no Bullseye here. But this is issue friggin' 17. This is part 17 of this same story of Daredevil, Matt Murdock, fighting these demons that have been targeting him. And it's just like going after people and possessing them and doing all this stuff. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this is just like the longest running thing. So, this is another thing where I'm torn with, where having a long-running story arc, it shows some commitment with the writer. Okay, we got this big story, we got these big plans, and it's not just like a flash in the pan, like, oh, fight this person, fight this person, fight this person. So, there's ways to just really flesh out the story and all that. But the downside with this, and I feel like for me, I've been seeing this almost too much lately, where how I see it as a bad thing, if you have a character, hero, team, whatever, fighting a villain that you just don't care about, or it just doesn't work for you, and then it just keeps going and going and going, then it's just like, come on, because it's the same thing, which I think there's Spider-Gwen. It's almost the same thing with Spider-Gwen, where it's just long-running story arc. It's like, aren't there any other bad guys that they can rumble, whatever. So this thing has just been going on forever, and it's just crazy. I think because for so long, like, things just kind of shifted, and we started getting these like 4 to 6 issue story arcs, so that they could be collected in trade paperback. It's like, okay, you're going to fight Kingpin 6 issues, boom. Now you're going to fight the Owl for 6 issues, or maybe 2 issues, and then someone else. But now, like 17, and I feel like when is this ever going to end? And part of me, I don't want the comic, the volume to end and then start over, because it's just so tiresome. I just want it to keep going. But part of me, I'm kind of like, when is this volume going to end so we can get something different? Because, I mean, I'm okay with it. I don't hate it. It's going on forever, and I don't know. I'd like to see something a little different. That's just how I feel about it. Deadpool and Wolverine #1. So I was like, oh, okay. Benjamin Percy. He's been. How long has he been writing Wolverine? It feels like for a while now. And so we have Joshua Cassara doing the art. So we got, okay, here we go. Deadpool and Wolverine. It's like, why are you doing this? Maybe because there was this movie that was like extremely successful. Is Marvel trying to cash in on that? It's like, why do we have to get this all the time? So I'm like, oh, I guess I'll check this out. I enjoyed it. I was like, wait, what? This is like the week where I've been surprised. Where I've been, as if you've been listening lately, I'm being a little more selective. Where normally it's like, okay, I got to read this. And then I just find that it must be extremely tiresome to hear me kind of complain or whatever, just trying to be as polite as possible about a book that I'm just not digging. So I'm to the point where I'm being more selective, where if I know I'm not going to like it, I'm not going to read it, because I just don't have the time, and I just don't think it's fun to hear that, especially if it's something that you are enjoying. Because not everything has to be for me. I'm totally fine with that. But this was pretty interesting, and yeah, it felt a little different. I feel like maybe one of the things, I think what I like now that I'm trying to think about this, is Wolverine wasn't as much of a jerk as he normally is, because normally he's just like no tolerance, and I don't know if he just thinks he's too cool for school or whatever, but it's like, oh, I hate Deadpool. I'm just going to slice him up because I can't stand him, and because I have such an attitude or whatever. And yeah, maybe he's doing it because he knows Deadpool has a healing factor, but it still doesn't make it okay. Where's this like consent stuff? You shouldn't be touching. Just because someone is annoying, you don't just, it doesn't seem right. Mr. Hero, X-Man, it's like, come on, there's better ways to do things. But I feel like Wolverine was maybe a little more understanding here, a little more tolerant, because he gets like pulled into this mission, and he's like, wait, what's going on with Deadpool? Because this doesn't seem like Deadpool. And then you find out that there's kind of something influencing things, and so I found it was I enjoyed it. It was interesting. What I did not enjoy is Miles Morales Spider-Man versus the Panther God. Oh my goodness! I'm still trying, and I should just stop reading this, but it's just what the heck. So we have Miles. He's still dealing with the fact that he's a vampire, and Black Panther T'Challa has decided to kind of help him, and they're going to go like the Wakandan gods route. And I'm not even sure if that's the thing. Like maybe the Panther God is going to cleanse him, but it's not the Panther God that's going to be dealing with it. There's like, and then the other thing is like, isn't T'Challa like kind of busy like in some like microverse or other dimension in Avengers, and now he's here hanging out with Miles? It's like, I just don't understand. And the only thing that's like what's interesting about this, so what's his name? So Miles's clone, quote unquote, brother, what's his name? Shift? At first I was like Glurb or Blurb, but I think you call him Shift. He's kind of shifting his body into looking more like Miles, because he's usually this big kind of hulking thing. So he's trying to control his mass, whatever, look like Miles, and going to school to take his place, since Miles is off playing hooky in Wakanda. And that's almost like the most interesting part of this comic, and it's not even Miles Morales. It's just like, what is going on? Then we have Spectacular Spider-Man with, again, Miles Morales and Spider-Man. And so what is going on? Why are these Miles Morales comics like not as appealing as they should be? And it's the same thing. People love Miles, and we don't have a great Miles comic. Just like there are people who love Ben Reilly, and we don't even have Ben Reilly anymore. We got someone called Chasm. So Spectacular Spider-Man, yeah, I started reading. I was like, I can't read this, and I don't know. It's so that's a hard thing. It's like, how can I not be reading a Spider-Man comic or a Miles Morales comic? But I'm to the point where it's like I just shouldn't even bother. But Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider. This is. I'm a little torn with this, and as I keep saying, this is drastically better than some of the recent Spider-Gwen miniseries that we've had. But it's similar to what I was saying with like Daredevil, and we're at issue 9, and we still have this like Black Tarantula stuff, and I just feel like this storyline is going way too long. There's barely been any mention of TVA stuff. It's we're getting little hints here and there, but it's like why did Gwen have to leave her Earth? Why is she hiding out at 616 Earth? What happened? Is her dad still there? What happened to Mary Jane from there? And so it's just kind of weird that they're just not really addressing it. And they don't want to. They're building the suspense. They don't want to spill all the beans at once or whatever. But after a while, it gets to be annoying. And what I'm kind of curious is like if Gwen is going to be staying in the 616, whatever. It's like what happens if she sees people that she knows? Because she's well versed in the multiverse stuff. But what would she do if she sees Mary Jane? Or will she team up with Mary Jane with Jackpot? And will she know it's her? And I want to see like stuff like that. And what will other people? What would Mary Jane do if she realizes this is Gwen Stacy? Because Mary Jane is kinda, but not as familiar with like multiverse, Spider-Verse stuff as the other characters are. So is she going to freak out to see a younger Gwen Stacy? What are her thoughts on that? That's what I want to see. Let's do a Spider-Gwen Jackpot miniseries and see where that goes, because I think that could be really interesting. The way they know their the counterparts so well, but these are completely different characters. So I think that could be really fascinating to see how they would deal with these different versions of like their best friends or whatever. There you go, Marvel. That's what I want. We have Sam Wilson, Captain America. I was a little confused by this one. You see on the cover, it's like, oh, we got Captain America, Sam Wilson. We got Red Hulk. What? This cover looks like it's just waiting for the movie to come out. But what it turns out, spoiler, is there more than one Red Hulk? Because the dude that turns into Red Hulk is not Thunderbolt Ross. And, he's going to have his own series, right? Isn't he like trapped in Latveria for some reason? Dr. Doom is doing something. So who's this other guy, and why is he turning into Red Hulk? I was like, wait, what? So the main focus here, this wasn't off to a good start for me. So it's written by Greg Pak and Evan Narcisse. Arts Eder Mazias and Valentin de Landro. So it starts off Sam, and he's fighting some whatever. Steve, he comes out and he's like, hey, you want to hang out or something like that? And he's like, well, I'm going to this event, but you can come if you want. I think his cousin. He's got to pick her up because they're going to hang out. They're going to go like a barbecue. And so who's at this barbecue? Almost every single black character in the Marvel Universe is all hanging out here. And of course, they're all in costume. So we got Monica Rambeau. We got Miles Morales. Wait, isn't he in Wakanda? Isn't he a vampire? What's he doing here? We got Blade. We got Ironheart. We have Brother Voodoo. We got Luke Cage. We got Rhodey. We got Storm. We got a Cloak. It's pretty much, we got Misty Knight. We got Patriot. Is that the kids? I don't remember what his name is now. It's like everyone, and they're all here for Isaiah Bradley or something like that. And it's just weird because I don't feel like these characters hang out. Like, why would Blade be there? And Rhodey. And the other thing that is so annoying about this series is Sam's cousin, Billy. She is she wants to work for this company. They're supposed to be doing some good things and helping people out, and reparations, whatever, giving people land and jobs and stuff like that. But it sounded like she would only get the job because she said that she would get her cousin, the Falcon, Captain America, to be like a spokesperson for them. And so, but she's like, this way I can get my share. And so it's like she's totally using him. She's like, oh, I need to do this so I can get my share, whatever. And it just seems like it makes her like such a despicable character. And the fact that she like signed him up, and he's like, whoa, he's like, I don't even know what this is about. And then she's like, well, you don't want me to get what I should get? It's only about you? And it's like, well, why don't you like actually do something for yourself? Why does he owe you anything? Why does he have to put his name? And if he's Falcon or Captain America, whatever, he's just going to automatically sign up for something without having. He's going to be a spokesperson for someone and no idea what they are. Maybe she's all she did some research, obviously not enough. And she thinks it's good, but you can't just expect someone to automatically go on your word without doing. Oh my goodness. It's like, what is going on in this comic is just so ridiculous. Yeah. And then it just kind of goes from there. and yeah, so then there's like bad guys and things aren't as good as it seemed. And kind of, yeah. Not, for me, not off to a good start, but maybe other people dig it. Ultimates, number 8. It's such a weird and interesting series, as we're seeing all these different versions of stuff. What we get here is the ultimate version of Guardians of the Galaxy. And it's not quite the Guardians of the Galaxy that we know or expect. They're from a different period. They're from the future. Let's say that. And there's just different things here. And and it had... I don't want to give too much away, but there's a reason that they come to the present. Then they have like kind of run-ins with the Ultimate, and there's of course just a misunderstanding, whatever. But yeah, kind of interesting. That's also all I'll say. I'm just fascinated, like with like what the plan is for this Ultimate Universe, because we know the Maker is going to be coming back, and what's going to happen, and we keep seeing all these other characters. So yeah, we'll see. Werewolf by Night number 6 came out. I'm not reading that. I don't know if I should be. Okay, this was interesting. What if Galactus transformed Hulk? I was on the fence. I was like, okay, should I be bothering to check this out? And it was okay. It's a kind of interesting story where you can kind of figure out what's going to happen. Is Galactus comes, he needs a herald. I'm going to eat your Earth unless you become my herald. Okay, yeah, Hulk can do it because Hulk is the strongest one there is. And then he kind of goes out and does stuff. So it's interesting seeing like the Hulk, like not Silver Surfer Hulk, but almost like that. But then then the Avengers like come get in his face like, hey, you shouldn't be doing this, whatever. And Banner kind of it's like, well, what's this to you? And it's like, why do you care about this planet, these people? And what Banner's trying to do is he's trying to, he would send message out to planets like, hey, here's some like ship designs. You guys need to evacuate your planet because Galactus is coming. He's trying to do what he can to help them. But then the Avengers start butting in and getting in a fight with the Hulk, and yeah, things just get messed up or whatever. But then the way it ends, it's like not even a complete story, because then it's just kind of like, okay, now this is going to happen. And it's like, wait, is there a part 2? But there's not. And then what we see after that, like on what's coming up, there's 4 more What If comics, and I'm assuming so these are all one-shots. These are all coming out in January this month. And they're all like Galactus. So I guess we're looking at the same thing. It's like, well, what if Galactus transformed this person? So there's what if Galactus transformed Gambit, which is such an oddball choice. It's like, okay, what if Galactus transformed Moon Knight? Of course, I feel like Marvel is aware how hot Moon Knight, that there's this, and I don't, it's hard for me to gauge because I love Moon Knight so much. I know that there's this really strong Moon Knight fan base, and we're seeing all these little like Moon Knight comics without it being like super obvious that Marvel is really trying to channel all this Moon Knight energy. But okay, I mean, to me, because of how it feels, like seeing these other Moon Knight, miniseries or side stories, or the anthology books or whatever. So we have Galactus transforming Moon Knight. Okay, makes no sense with the comics, with the story, but makes sense that they're doing that. Then there's what if Galactus transformed Rogue? So I feel like the Gambit and Rogue, maybe they're like, oh, a lot of people love the Gambit and Rogue storyline in X-Men 97. Maybe we should try to see if we can capture that. And if so, okay, that's great that they're paying attention, trying to give people what they want. And then there's what if Galactus transforms Spider-Gwen? Which, again, I'm definitely going to read all of those. I just think they're such weird choices, but okay, there you go. You got me reading what ifs, and I normally skip them. X Factor number 6. This is another hard one for me. I don't love what's happening here, how X Factor is being treated, what they're doing, but I do love what Mark Russell does. He has this interesting way of, he makes things funny, but he also puts this like hard edge, like truth to it. And it's not always the most cheerful thing. Even though there's comedy in the book, a lot of time it's a little sad. It's a little pathetic, but it's like realistic. So he's got this like really interesting way of like just laying out these stories. So we're seeing this like X Factor group, which is basically run by the government and a branch of the government. And, they're obviously trying to use them and do different things. And, the whole point is the mutants are expendable. They don't care what happens to them. They're just looking for press opportunities and this and that. So there's a lot with, Havoc trying to be this leader, even though, he's sort of a puppet, but not quite. He had to run in with Lorna and this other group, this other mutant group. And so definitely some interesting things here. And, I'm intrigued with what's going to happen. Then we have X-Force number 7. I like the characters for the most part. I'm not a big fan of Forge, but yeah, just some weird things happening here, and I don't know. We do find out a little bit more about Rachel and Betsy, where there's, and I don't know if this is something that wasn't new, but there's something with like the power levels and they're kind of like siphoning like excess energy. And I don't remember if it was Rachel that has just like too much energy, so Betsy's kind of helping her like keep it down or tame it down or whatever like that. And like Forge finds out about this and he's like, why didn't you tell me about this? And which does make sense. It's like, okay, so here's a guy who can make a machine for everything, so wouldn't he be able to help if there's an issue? And then there's like someone else coming after him, which is, I don't know where that's going to go, but so that was a fine issue. Oh, and then I almost forgot, and I won't spoil this. At the end, someone attacks them, and what? It makes absolutely no sense. Well, I'll just say, and I don't know if it's on the cover for the next issue since I try not to look at solicits, but they're like in their whatever plane, their jet, and they get attacked by a mutant colleague, let's just say. Normally, they're on the good side. Why are they attacking? Where is this going to go? So I'm definitely going to have to check out the next issue because of that. At DC Comics, we had Absolute Superman number 3. I find this to be very interesting because on the surface, I can't say I'm 100% on board with the idea of these absolute books. Part of it is like, why do we need these? Why do we need this like separate universe when, you got a really great universe to begin with? And if you want to do new characters, create new characters and put them in like I said, with Absolute Batman, while it's Batman, but it's a kind of in some ways a slightly different version of Batman because it's not the way Bruce Wayne is now. And while there are some cool things about that, he's limited to now to this absolute world. So, you can't see more than that. And how long is this these absolute comics going to go? I don't know. But with Absolute Superman, and this is the same thing like with Wonder Woman as well, where I find it the challenge that these writers have to deal with is making a different enough version of the character to kind of make it worth doing. Where, no one wants to see just Batman again. That there's a slight twist to this. And so what we're seeing with Wonder Woman, totally, her origin is went off in a different direction. But with Superman, one of the big things here, and I don't think this is a spoiler. I'm trying to remember if I think it was mentioned in the last issue, whatever. But we saw Superman, and this is like really hard for me to accept. But I'm like, okay, where is this going to go? Where Superman was still he grew up on Krypton. He was a boy. It's not like he was this baby that was shot off in space. He actually spent time going to school and doing stuff on Krypton before whatever. We assume the planet's going to blow up, or we don't know for a fact. But it's just weird because it feels like he shouldn't have all that memories, but he does here. So that right there sets it apart as different. The other major thing is Superman's costume, and especially with his cape. There's power in the suit that is different from just the fact that he's a Kryptonian. So there's some definitely interesting, like where is this going to go? But what's cool about this issue is, and similar to the previous issue, where we see more of Jor-El and Lara on Krypton, and I gotta say, man, Lara, she kicks butt. I mean, she's this really cool character, and I love the fact that she is equally intelligent, because we always know Jor-El is like super smart. He's supposed to be in the science council, or whether he was or not, whatever. Then he knew things were going to happen, but no one listened to him. So we know he's always been depicted as like this smart, intelligent person. Lara, they never really did much about her, and sometimes they explored like, okay, well, what caste was she in, and different things. But here we see that she's incredibly intelligent as well, like designing machinery, and she's like working on the rocket designs or whatever, Starship, and the fact that she kicks butt, man, and it's really cool to see that. So it's almost like this is a point where I would like to see a Krypton comic. Where like the recent Action Comics where they go up to Krypton, it's like, I don't need to see that. I don't need to see Superman going back in time and meeting his parents or whatever. It's like, what's the point of that? But here, yeah, there's definitely some cool things here, and so I enjoyed that. And there's also this other little element that they added to young Kal-El. As a kid, one of the things that he was interested in doing that we see can easily carry over to once he's on Earth. So I'm enjoying that. Batman 156. So this is Chip Zdarsky. Tony Daniel does the art here, which is always awesome to see. And things kind of conclude here. We're seeing they kind of conclude, but it's not over yet. There's still more to the story. Things are kind of like wrapping up with Jim Gordon being accused of murder, and it's like, wait, did he do that? Did he not? What? How? The evidence is there. What? Then there's stuff with Riddler and then the Court of Owls, and it's like, who's this Commander Star guy? And in a way, is Commander Star Bruce Wayne's supposed mysterious half brother? Because what is going on here? And things kind of heat up, and so I would say definitely some cool things here. Then we have JSA number 3. This is a little dark and dreary because half the team has been abducted or they're disappeared, and like Hawkman is like in hell, which is not good for him. And it almost looks like they're also being betrayed by someone. So it makes me wonder, why is that person, has they been replaced? Is someone pretending to be that person? And there's like some things I don't really know a whole lot about some of these characters. Like, we have Jade here. Jade and what's her brother's name? Obsidian. I don't know a whole lot about them. I've seen some stories, especially like when James Robinson was writing Justice League. He brought them in, which that was cool. And but I'm not like overly familiar. There is a character mentioned at the end, which I won't spoil, and I don't know the full history of that character because it's just a book that I just didn't read. Might have been like a Vertigo. I think there may have been a Vertigo version, story or volume, whatever. But this was a regular DC character as well. So we see this character at the end. Is this a new incarnation? Is it a descendant? Is it like so? We have that to look forward to, and it's definitely some cool stuff. I was a little concerned. It does feel different. Obviously, it's drastically different from Jeff Johns' Justice League. I was a little worried about that. So it doesn't quite have that same vibe, but it's almost like there's more. Not necessarily that Jeff Johns had like a wholesome vibe to it, but now things are just, and maybe it's just because there's so many problems going on here that the team's like in danger, and so definitely I'm enjoying this, and it's Jeff Lemire obviously is a brilliant writer, so we got cool things to expect here. Justice League: The Atom Project. I wanted to read this. I wasn't able to because of time. I'm not like the biggest Atom fan or Ray Palmer fan, but because it's Justice League, I don't know if it's something that is going to be important. So I'll have to check that out. I just wasn't able to this time. And part of it is because with Batgirl number 3, I never read issue 2. So I mentioned that like a month ago where it's like, oh, I forgot to read it or whatever. So I went back and read issue 2 and read issue 3 because I'm sorry, Cassandra Cain takes priority over Ray Palmer or whoever else is the Atom. So we got Cassandra Cain, which is weird because Cassandra Cain's here. She's also in Birds of Prey, but here, she's with her mom, Lady Shiva, and so she doesn't want anything to do with her mom, and there's like all this fighting going on, and they're being targeted, and so there's definitely some interesting things here. Lady Shiva sometimes feels like, wait, is this? It feels like she's being written a little differently, but there's definitely some interesting things here. And then someone else pops in at the end. It's like, okay, this is going to be like, because obviously Cassandra's not going to like that. She's not happy about that. So I'm really curious to see where this is going to go and like what they're going to do with this. So I'm enjoying this. I'm glad we have this series. Then we had Birds of Prey 17. So Kelly Thompson is, of course, just amazing. And I think Sammy Basri did the art here. But so Cassandra Cain went undercover, and then she didn't come back. And then there's like this stuff that's being injected into. I think there's like a bunch of Amazons that were missing, and they're being turned into these muscle, like steroid. Well, it's not steroid, but like these whatever slaves or. And so the Birds of Prey go to try to rescue Cassandra since she never reported back and everything, and. Yeah, things get out of hand, and it's just such a fun and well-written book. Shazam, issue 19. I did not read that. Again, one, it was because of time, and two, because I've been just so disappointed with this book lately. And it's one, I love the character, and I'm I do want to see like what's going to happen with the family. Are they what's going on with Billy's mom? She doesn't, she wants him back, but the foster parents want to adopt everyone else, and this is causing problems. And I don't know. Maybe I'll check it out at some point, or just wait till the next issue. I don't know. And then that's pretty much all I read. There was a Batman Full Moon, which number 3. I don't know anything about that. I haven't heard anything about it. There's a Two-Face issue 2, which I didn't realize. I thought it was just like a one-shot, so maybe I need to go back and read issue 1 and 2. Poison Ivy is still going on. The book that I feel guilty about, because now we're issue 29, and I've said it before, I think it is awesome. It's still going, and that's great. That I thought it was just like a 10-issue miniseries, or something, I didn't, if even that. And it just kept going. So I was like, okay, so I feel bad that I'm not reading that. Then there was a Creature Commandos. I think it was issue 3 or something like that. I have no idea. I don't know anything about that book, like if it's based off the cartoon or just whatever. But what I do know is that is going to be comic books for the week. All right, then Creature Commandos, Season 1, Episode 5, The Iron Pot. So I enjoyed this episode. I feel like we're starting to see like a pattern. Where we have the current story moving on, and then we're getting some flashbacks to flesh out one of the other characters. And what it seems like is there's some sort of tragic story to be told. And in some cases, like with Weasels, like oh, we're supposed to care about the character, feel bad for him. But then with this one, it's like, this is, what's going on here? So it starts off that Dr. Asa McPherson, the Themyscira expert, she's standing in front of her class, like in this auditorium. And it's like really weird. She tells like the student, she's like, oh, I like your top. And it's like, that doesn't seem appropriate, even whatever. And then she asks, what can you tell me about Themyscira? And because she's like, this is a class about Themyscira, gorgeous. Seems like you should be able to tell me something about it. And it's like, wait, you can't call a student gorgeous. And then she sits on a like the desk kind of table next to her, and she like brushes her hair out of her eyes and says, she's like, what are your 3 favorite things about Themyscira? And she's like, well, I guess the ancient sculptures of Antigone. And then the McPherson's like, yawn. And then the student's like, and the recently unearthed poetry of Apollonia. And she's like, she's like, she's snoring. She's like, and she's like, oh, she's like, I'm sorry. She's like, what about that? And then she writes on a chalkboard, lesbians. And then the class is like, what, huh? She's like, oh my God. So it's like, what's going on here, Dr. McPherson? Rick and Frankenstein are watching from a window outside the auditorium, which is weird, that there's windows there or whatever. And the auditorium is kind of like sunken, so they're like looking down. It's almost like they're in a basement. And Frankenstein's like, that doesn't seem very professional. And Rick's like, something is definitely off. Then they see several students are kind of watching them stare into the window because they're like in the bushes. So Frankenstein stands up and he's like, I know my contact lens is back here somewhere. And Rick just kind of like face palms. Students move along, which seems weird that they wouldn't be freaked out. So he asks Rick, he's like, how is this helping me get my bride? And Rick's like, it's a trade-off. You help me help the princess, I help you with the bride. And then he's like, well, it's taking a long time. And Rick's like, this Professor McPherson, she's the one who claims Cersei's visions of the princess causing World War III are real. And Frankenstein's like, so? And Rick's like, so? Does she seem like she knows what she's talking about? And Frankenstein's like, I suppose not. And Rick's like, the commandos are on their way to assassinate the princess. Now, we find out the truth of this professor, so we stop them, and you get to see your bride, a hero. He's like, oh, awesome. Shall I kill the professor? And he's like, what? No. But it seems like weird. They're already on their way there, and here they're just like sitting around, like playing games, like looking in a window. And it's like they're going to be landing at any point, and then they could just kill her right away. So it's like, I think you need to be a little more hustle. Rick's like, no. And then Frankenstein's like, a few of the kids? And Rick's like, no. He's like, why are you killing anyone? You just said that you wanted me to be a hero. And Rick's like, not like that. Right now, we should check out the professor's house while she's here at school. He's like, okay, I'll take the underwear drawer. So they're like, okay, Frankenstein. But then we get a flashback. Frankenstein's standing over Victor's dead body. Bride comes in. Guess what I bring you, Mr. Victor? Lemon. And then he's like, I did what I had to do. She gasps. And then she punches him. Candle gets knocked. So we saw some of this. Candle gets knocked over, just flames. She's got her hands at his throat. The locket falls off while they're struggling. He flips her over. She kicks him off. He catches on fire. So in the present, Frankenstein's drinking out of like a crazy straw while Rick tries getting Princess Ilana on the phone again. Students are like, now they're freaking out. They're running from Frankenstein. But before, they didn't bat an eye. So it's like, it's weird. Then a person on the phone hangs up since, they don't speak English. The transport plane lands. Alexei welcomes them back with open arms. He says it's strange for them to be back so soon. Bride's like, they're just here to protect the princess as they have another credible threat. And Alexei's like, for 100 years in isolation, we have no problem in Apocalypse. Then we open a communication with Americans, and within weeks, it's nothing but threat. So he asks, what's the threat exactly? Who is the threat? And Bride's like, unfortunately, that's classified. And he's like, well, if Princess' life is in danger, don't you think we should know? And Bride's like, it really doesn't matter what I think. And then she just keeps walking. Phosphorus just like shrugs, and then they get into the transport, and Alexi sighs. At McPherson's house, they get out of truck. Frankenstein points out a woman walking a cat, and Rick's just like, mm-hmm. And he's like, I didn't know that was something that happens. And Rick's like, apparently it is. And Frankenstein's like, could be a bad omen? And Rick's like, or maybe it's just a cat on a leash. And then Rick picks a lock. He's like, something that odd? No, it's definitely an augury of some type. I know these things. I once lived with a gypsy woman steeped in the occult. So here we go. We get a flashback. Frankenstein walks out of the manor in flames. He calmly walks into a river. He just lets himself sink and get swept away. He goes down like a waterfall, continues to float. Then he's found the next day by his dog, is like barking. There's this old gypsy woman. She checks him out, and she's blind. Dog drags him out of water. Then at her shack, she tends to him. He wakes up. He's confused. The dog growls. And so the woman tells Frankenstein that he's badly burned. She's pointing this ointment on him that has like ancient healing properties, and they're sacred to her family. And he's like, gypsy poop. And she chuckles, but she agrees. Then later, she's in her garden. He walks up with a crutch. She comments that his mobility is improving. He asks her why does she not look at him when she speaks? It's disrespectful. And then she's like, my eyes don't work. And he's like, you're blind? And so it's like, well, I mean, I guess he's not the smartest, apple in a bunch or whatever. And she's like, da. He's like, this world holds nothing of worth besides beauty. If I were blind, I would kill myself. The beauty of my bride, that's what keeps me going. And she's like, close your eyes. He's like, why? It's like, have I not earned your trust? Are they closed? Yes. Now imagine your bride. That is beauty, and that is not with your eyes, is it? No. That is most of my everyday. I see more beauty than you can imagine. In the present, Rick and Frankenstein enter McPherson's place. Rick says he'll take the upstairs, even though Frankenstein wanted the underwear drawers, but I guess that's not happening. There are some like vases, like little statues. Frankenstein sees this cat on the sofa, like pawing at the curtain string. He's like, is that a leash? But it's not. Upstairs, Rick walks and his foot like squelches. He stepped in some blood that's coming out of this like the bedroom or something like that, seeping under the door. So he opens the door. There's someone sitting in a chair at a desk with their back to Rick. So he calls Frankenstein to come up. Rick turns the chair, and McPherson is sitting there with her throat slit. And he's like, it's her. Frankenstein's like, well, we just saw her. And Rick's like, it had to be a fake, some sort of disguise artist or someone working for Circe to just throw us off track. All that mumbo jumbo with Walker yesterday just to get the princess killed. And he tries calling again. So at this point, this is where things kind of get ruined, because it's like, okay, what is going on? Who could it be? If you know about casting and stuff like that, it's not that hard to guess who it's going to be. So Alana's having this big fancy meal at her palace, and it's just like her, just sitting at the table by herself. Server answered the phone. Rick says he needs to speak with the princess right now, and a dude mumbles in like Pokalastani, and then Alana must have heard him. She rushes, grabs the phone, and he's like, oh, thank God, Alana. It's like, you need to get out of there. The commandos are on their way to kill you. Get out. And she's like, what? I don't understand. And Frankenstein's like, tell me about it. And Rick's like, I'll explain soon. And Frankenstein's like, tell her about how we've been hanging out and everything. He's like, Frank, shut up. He's like, then he says to Alana, he's like, you need to get someplace safe. And Frankenstein's like, tell her how I'm a good person. And then she's like, Alexi is picking them up right now. And then Frankenstein's like, hey, Ilana, put in a good word for me with the bride. And Rick's like, would you shut the fudge up? And he's like, Ilana, just get out of there. Then he sees Dr. McPherson pulling up in a driveway, like drinking a soda and burping. Rick tells Ilana that he'll call her back shortly. Let's just get out of there. So he ends the call, and Frankenstein's just glaring at him. He's like, what? He's like, you didn't tell her everything about me. And he's like what? He's like, oh, I don't know. Maybe how we're best friends? How is she going to vouch to the bride about how much I've changed and what a rad guy I am if you don't even tell her we're buds? He's like, shh. He's like, the bride is trying to kill her. She's not going to listen to what Ilana has to say. I'm beginning to suspect that this whole plan makes absolutely no sense from my point of view. And Rick's just like, ugh. He's like, just hide. Frankenstein's just like pouting, and he moves like a little behind his bird cage that's on a table and just crosses his arm. He's like, do you think you're hidden right now? He's like, oh, come. I don't give a poop. So Rick like points. I thought he pointed to the closet, but then Frankenstein just like groans. He just like plops on the side of the bed. So flashback, he drops a dead turkey. tells a woman to clean it. She says, she's like, no need to be so bossy. And he's like, I seem to have a way with this shotgun. If I see something to murder, I barely have to think and it is done. And she's like, my father would be happy to see it put to use. He's like, Ivan, the dog, helped. And she's like, oh, how did Ivan help? He was quiet. It was good. And he's like, Bogdana, thank you for nursing me back to health and allowing me a place to recuperate. She's like, this is not just a place for you to recuperate, Eric. It is your home. And I, and especially Ivan, have been the happiest we've ever been in your company, even though you are a grouch. And he's like, I still have the shotgun, woman. Don't tempt me. And she like chuckles and he smiles. Alexei's driving the Commandos. He answers his phone. Then he kind of side eyes the others and he acts like nothing's wrong. And he's like, unfortunate traffic on the way to Castle. We should take alternative route. Bride looks at Phosphorus and at Alexei and she's like, okay. At McPherson's, she feeds the cat a tiny bit. And she's like, there you go, idiot. She sits on the couch, has a beer. She turns on the Xbox. Rick and Frankenstein are watching from the stairs. Then McPherson starts to change. You guessed it. It's Clayface. And whispering, Rick's like, it's a shapeshifter. Calls himself Clayface. He's dangerous. We have to sneak out. So they creep down the stairs. They go to the front door. Meanwhile, Alexei's still driving the Commandos. Bride notices the castle is behind him in the side mirror. And she's like, what's up, Alexei? And he's like, She's like, this isn't. She's like, we're leaving the city. The castle is that way. He's like, oh, it seems roundabout, but it is a good shortcut. She glances at Phosphorus again. And then he stops at this chain link fence. And she's like, what the hell? So he's like, engine was making a funny noise. Did you hear that? And he makes it's like a sputtering noise. He's like, did you, huh? And she's like, no. He's like, I'm afraid I am screwing up. How do you say the pseudonential? He's like, how do you? And for Phosphorus, like, I think how we say it is, keep moving, Alexei. He's like, you want me to permanently damage vehicle? He's like, yes. Rick and Frankenstein reach the door, but then the tendrils like creep out beneath the sofa and towards them and grab them. And you hear, gotcha, and he slams Rick down. Alexei's driving, they stop, and they're surrounded by soldiers pointing their guns at them. There's also like flying soldiers in their armored battle suits. There's like a battle copter hovering. The bride curses. And Alexei's like, my men have fought and died for the princess. We are not going to let you kill her now. So the bride tries for the door, but it's locked. Alexei points his gun at her head, and he's like, stand down, bride. And then Phosphorus slams his fist through the headrest and knocks like the top of Alexei's head off at the jaw. Just like his head's gone. And he's like, what a shame. I like that guy. Soldiers start shooting at the truck. Bride hits the unlock button. They exit and start shooting back. Rick and Frank are fighting or getting slammed by a Clayface. And then we got to have a song, right? Love Song 666 by Urban Voodoo Machine plays. So more cool music. I'm so out of it. I guess I never heard of this song. So I just wonder, it's like, how much are they spending on licensing the music? And I feel it's just, I don't know. I don't think it's necessary, but whatever. Not my call. Rick's already got a black eye and he's bleeding. Frankenstein tries tearing through Clayface, but he keeps like shifting his form, covers him while laughing. Rick shoots like a big hole through him, does nothing. He just reforms. And Pakistani, whatever, soldiers are continuing fire on the Commandos. The head, whatever, Knight radios that only the Blue Woman and the Skeleton Man are threats. At McPherson's, Rick is getting pounded. Clayface practically does like a Bane backbreaker move on him, and I don't know how his back is not broken from that. Bride is plowing through soldiers. Phosphorus, he faces like this big tank. He takes off his clothes, melts like right through the tank as it drives. Frankenstein tries pulling through Clayface. Then he pulls the Xbox from the outlet. Bride steals the soldier's gauntlet, starts firing on a soldier. So I guess it works like that it doesn't seem like it would work if it was just not with the whole suit. So Frankenstein's still trying to break free. He's reaching for the wall outlet. Clayface is just like laughing. Frankenstein manages to punch a wall, yanks wires, and he starts to get electrocuted, and it doesn't go well for Clayface. And then he just collapses on the floor. So obviously Frankenstein's okay with electricity because that's what brought him to life, but somehow he knew it would work against Clayface. Okay. Phosphorus gets dressed. He puts his foot down on a severely wounded soldier crawling towards him. Police sirens are in the background. Nina's like hiding in this abandoned building. Weasel climbs over some debris. Bride runs through the back streets whispering for Nina or Phosphorus. Rick is like coughing up blood. Frankenstein picks him up and tells him to hold on. He's like, don't die, don't die. He's like, because I have so many questions before you do. Did the bride ever mention me? Rick just coughs some more. Is that a yes? He's like, in your estimation, did she say my name fondly? And he's just like coughing. And he's like, Flag. He's like groans and coughs. Then he's like, tell the bride the truth. And he just like groans weakly. He's like, is he dead? Then there's a flashback. Frankenstein's getting ready to leave the shack. Bogdana begs him to reconsider. He says that he stayed long enough. He has to find his bride. His sole purpose is to be together. And she's just like sobbing. It's like, she tried to kill you. She does not love you. He's like, she was being flirtatious and coy. There are complex mating rituals between humans that you don't understand, Bogdana. No one loves a woman who makes things too easy. And she's like, she does not love you. How can you not see this? He's like, no. And she's like, why did you lock Ivan outside? He's like, because I'm uncertain he would understand. And she's like, understand what? Please, Eric, don't leave. I don't want to be alone. And she's like sobbing. He's like, I would never let you be alone, Bogdana. And then he raises an iron pot over his head, slams it down twice. So Iron Pot's the name of the episode. So he kills her. Ilana waits at the palace. Sergei, one of the guards, comes up. She asks what happened. And he said, the Creature Commandos have escaped. He's like, we did everything we could, but I don't believe they will be much danger out there on their own. And she's like, it is tragic, Sergei. They are being misled by their own government, but we have no other choice. You must find them, and you must kill them all. Meanwhile, Frankenstein, in the memory, he's walking out of the shack. He closes the door. Ivan looks at the door because he wants to go inside. He wants to, be with Bogdana. And Frankenstein whistles, and he runs after Frankenstein. They walk through the woods. And then that's the end of that episode. So is Rick dead? Probably not. And next week, it looks like it's going to be a Dr. Phosphorus flashback story. Or this week, last episode, whatever. So you can see that. So, like I said, it's interesting. But at the same time, it's not selling me on the characters. Okay, Frankenstein is a horrible person. He killed this old lady who nursed him back to health. And we're supposed to feel for him? I don't know. Okay, then Star Wars Skeleton Crew, Season 1, Episode 6, Zero Friends Again. So this, like I mentioned before, I enjoyed this. It's weird because while, we're so used to like big Star Wars action and stuff like that, there wasn't a whole lot of big action, but there's a lot of story being told here. And, there's some stuff here, and things aren't looking too good for the kids. We'll just say that. So it starts off, they're going down this long series of slides, which is weird because remember they hit like that booby trap thing to get away from Jod. So, and then they start getting separated into different shafts. But for some reason, they're all led outside to the bottom of the mountains. So it's like, is this meant to be an escape route rather than a booby trap? Because they land kind of safely in some sand or whatever. With all the other traps, it just seems like where's the spikes or whatever, the dungeon, but they're all free. And why splitting the shafts and then they're all just like pipes, like all next to each other. So Neil notices KB's unconscious. He calls the others over. Fern says something. Sometimes her augs go bad and she can't move. And KB kind of like nods and mutters, uh-huh. So Fern's like, she's going to need to reset her occipital link. And Neil's like, is she going to be okay? And Fern's like, yeah, it's okay. Jod exits this escape hatch by the launching pad. He's wearing like a new coat. He's draped with like chains and pearls, and he's like laughing. As he climbs out, he sees like the hotelier and like 4 others just like standing there. Like, I don't know if they're guests or if they're all workers at the hotel. He's like, hello. He's like, I'm glad you're here. I'd like to check out, refuel my ship, prepare for my immediate departure. And then you hear a gun charges up. Don't move. You're not going anywhere. He's like, oh, we've got a very special cabin in our ship all ready for you, Silvo. So it's that Gunter or whatever guy. So Jod like turns and looks at him. He's like, I was just coming to find you. He's like, down there is the biggest pile of loot you will ever lay your hands on. And they're like, save it, Silvo. And in pockets like nearby, she like waves. So he's told that, he's going to be going to Captain Brutus, whatever. And he's like, wait. He's like, that's just a taste. He's like, I'm in line for something even bigger. He's like, I'll cut you in. And then he shouts, 33, attack. Aye, Captain. So he starts climbing out of the hatch. He gets zapped. He gets like shot and zapped, groans, and the pirates laugh. Pocket like puts her arms around him. She's like, no hard feelings, Dash. It's really been wonderful running into you. This pirate calls out to Gunter, says that X-Wings are coming. So Gunter yells for them to retreat. He's like, bring the droid, load them on board. Down the mountain, KB points at the ships, and she's like, pirates. And Wim says that those are the other ships. The other ships are fighting them off. So they're like the ones that Kim, the owl lady, called. Neil says that Jod said that X-Wings were bad. Wim says, no, they're the good guys. He's like, they stand and try waving them down. They like fly over. And Fern's like, they left us. And KB's like, it's too bad because I have the coordinates and at home and everything. And Fern's like, perfect, because like she stored it in her brain. So Fern's like, perfect. So now we just need to climb back to our ship. It's still there, see? KB's like, it's not perfect. It's impossible. And she turns and like walks away from them. Fern tells Wim and Neil to stay there. She goes after KB. And she's like, you're okay, right? So I just know Wim is going to fight me on climbing up the cliff. And then she sighs. She's like, how should we play it? Because to be honest, I don't even know if Neil is going to be able to. And then KB's like, maybe we should consider some other options. And Fern's like, well, we have to get back to the ship, right? And KB doesn't say anything. She's like, I can't think of any other options. And she's like, you can't. So you just assume there aren't any. And then Fern's like, hey, KB, why are you? And she's like, because if you were actually interested, you'd be listening for once. And maybe we'd be actually talking about something. Fern's like, if there's something so important that you want to tell me, then go ahead. So Neil calls out to Fern, says that they're not alone down there. There are all these little like crawly critters coming at them. Fern gives KB an incredulous look and just like heads over to the boys. Fern yells at them to get away because it could be dangerous. Wim's like, no, they're friendly. And they're trash crabs. They're like, friendly. So like instead of shells, they have like hunks of trash on their backs. Wim's like, see, they can talk. That means they're intelligent and they can help. Neil disagrees. He's like, no. And Fern tells Wim that they have to climb up to the ship. And he's like, what? Up there? He's like, no, you're going to fall and smash all the bones in your body. And Fern's like, no, I'm not. And Wim's like, yes, you are. She's like, no, I'm not. And he's like, yes, you are. And she's like, I'm not doing this stupid baby fight with you. And he kind of like flinches back a little bit. She's like, this isn't a game. He's like, I know it's not a game. And she's like, really? And Neil's like, stop fighting, stop it, okay? We all need to work together and get back to the ship. Wim's like, I know, that's what I've been saying. These guys are local. We can follow them to someone who can help. Fern takes a deep breath, and the trash crab's like, follow. KB's like, I'm with Wim. And all three of them are like surprised. And Fern like stares at her, and then she's like, fine. She's like, I guess we're splitting up. And KB's like, fine, I guess we are. Fern's like, let's go, Neil. And he's like, yeah, probably groups of two make the most sense. We'll pick you guys up once we get to the ship. And Wim's like, well, okay, but we'll already be at the ship waiting for you. And then the trash crabs keep saying, follow, help. So the smoking pirate ship returns to spaceport because, they've been attacked. Alien says that Captain Brutus will now give the verdict. He's like, I find the so-called mad Captain Silvo guilty. So there's just cheers. He's like, shut up. For his heinous crimes, I sentence him to death by airlock. More cheers. And this old like woman pirate, she kind of looks concerned. And she finally yells, she's like, wait, what of equal time? Right of last appeal. So says the pirate's code. And the crowd like groans. Brutus growls. Then his one guy's like, the right of last appeal must be honored. Equal time. And then Jod's like, most gracious. So then they're like, equal time will now begin. So he hits this like space hourglass thing. And then it's like quiet. So Jod's like, I'm hungry. He's like, I've been hungry ever since I can remember, because all I've ever had were scraps. The other's like, what's he on about? It's like, just kill him already. And so Jod stands up. How long have you been hungry? And someone's like, what? How long have you been left behind in the junk heaps of the galaxy, fighting over crumbs? So someone's like, scoffs, like, enough of this glitter speech, Silvo. It's like the words of a dead man are worthless. And pointing to like that hourglass. And he's like, plasma still runs, sir. And he shouts, he's like, we're all hungry. Some people like murmur and agree. He's like, because credits are scarce. There's never enough. It's like, what if there were? Just imagine. What if there were a place where you didn't have to divvy up your takes because your takes never ran out? Imagine that. And he starts like talking to individual pirates about stuff that they could buy. And this lady's like, what's the trick? He's like, no trick. just a virgin gleam of brand new Old Republic credits. He tosses one up, and they all gasp. The one alien's like, just like the creds that them brats were flashing. And John's like, they're real, and I know where they make them. I know where they make them because I heard it from Tac Renaud himself. More murmuring. Captain Brutus growls, Tac Renaud is dead. And then singing, he's like, Tac Renaud soared away, away. And the crowd sings along, aboard the Onyx in there, and was he seen again. And he's like, what's the last line? For at Atten he did plunder. And so Bruce like, so you're saying it's true? And John's like, I'm saying, we all know Brutus makes a very capable first mate. Stick with him, you'll get a meager reward. You come with me, I'll give you the entire Griffin galaxy. So the crowd starts shouting, the hourglass timer has run out. And he's like, time's up. So Gunter like punches him in the gut, and they bring him to Brutus. He's like, we'll go see this at Atten. He shoves Jod against like the inner door to like the airlock. He's like, if there's no treasure, you're going for a little ride. With the kids, Ship's carrying like big trays of trash, like dump them on the landfill. And Wim says to KB, he's like, so did you come with me because you actually believe in the trash crabs or because you're mad at Fern? Tell the truth. She doesn't answer. So they reach like the trash pile. There's a droid. At first I was like, wait, is this 33? But they took 33. But it's in the sand. There's a little crab like climbs out of his eyes. Wim asks KB if she thinks that 33 is okay, but that he's with the pirates. Then he repeats, but she's sitting with her back to the pile, and he runs to her, and her visor's up. He's like, KB, what's wrong? And she's like, I can't move. My ogs are corroded. He's like, corroded? What should I do? And she's like, gather some droid servos, and maybe we can fix it. So Neil yells at Fern to slow down. Fern calls back. She's like, you can't keep stopping. Climbing is easy, step by step. He's like, not for me. He's like, I don't have long spider legs like you, okay? It's like, I can't reach between the rungs. He's like, I'm sorry, but not everyone can do things the same way you can. Then Fern sees like rope on this gear on the side of the cliff, because now there's starting to be like structure to the cliff where they're climbing. So Wim runs up to KB. He's like, is this enough droid parts? And she's like, yes. And she's like weakly, she's like, let me show you what to do. And she's like, open this. And she's like unwind the lighter wires. He's like, I got it. Have you ever done this before? And she's like, sort of, not outside. He's like, is this why you didn't want to climb? She's like, you could have just told Fern. And KB's like, sometimes she's not exactly living in the world herself. And Wim's like, yeah, totally. What do you mean? He agrees with her, but he doesn't know what she's talking about. And KB's like, ever since my accident, Fern always assumed I could do anything she could. Like, I'm not different. He's like, okay, that sounds good. And KB's like, but I am different. And she pulls out the back of her hair. Can you pull out the resonator housing and remove the microfuse? And he's like, what's a microfuse? She's like, it's a little metal cylinder. So he gingerly reaches into this compartment, like in the back of her visor, and like in her head. And she's like, anyways, pretending I can run around on a freezing cold moon through a bunch of steam, climb a cliff after days without maintenance, that's just not reality, Fern. He pulls this like little piece of, like with a computer board, and he's like, so just tell her that. And KB's like, I can't do that. He's like, why not? Because she doesn't have patience for that. You know how she is. And then I'll have zero friends again. And Wim's like, that's so dumb. Anyways, you can be friends with me and Neil. And she looks at him while he's like looking down at the pieces, and she smiles. It's like something like this is one of the nice things about the show. It's like just like so completely innocent and just like, you know, truthful. Wim's like, I don't care if you have weather parts where you can't do things like it's like you can be friends with us. So it's just like no judgment. So that's just one of the very really nice things about the show. So he lifts some pieces up. He's like, here, is this enough? She's like, it'll have to be. So she hands him like a torch from her belt. She's like, melt the wires. She like groans and she's like breathing weakly. He's like, KB, are you okay? And he tries to hurry. He's like kind of like trying to melt the wires. So she sticks a pin or something into the sand. She's like, now pour it into the mold. So he does. And she's like, replace microfuse. So he pulls the newly formed piece out of the sand. I guess it's not too hot, even though it's like molten wires, molten whatever. So he kind of brushes off. He blows it a little bit to cool it. I don't know. And then she continues breathing heavy. So he snaps the piece in. It's almost like putting a battery in. he starts like putting the computer back in. He's like, it doesn't fit. And she's like, push. But it's like, okay, you're pushing this gear into the back of your head. It's like, you think you'd want to be delicate. So he pushes in there. The hatch closes on the back of her visor. The music like crescendos, and she sits there. She exhales, and her head bows. So she's dead. And Wim, like panting, crawls to her front. He stares at her in silence because she's dead. But she's not dead. They wouldn't kill her. Lights beep, and she gasps, and she sits back up. And she like easily wiggles her fingers, looks around, she stands up. She's like, that was close. And Wim's like, to what? And she's like, total system shutdown. He's like, what? And she's like, you probably thought it would be more exciting to save someone's life. Anyway, thanks, Jedi. And she flips her visor back down and walks off with the trash crabs. And Wim slowly smiles. Fern and Neil are climbing like this sort of, they've reached like a ladder thing now. The rope is tied around him, so she's kind of like helping like lift him up or guide him or whatever. And she's counting off the steps as they're going. Then they see a ship their ship being lifted up by like others, like smaller ships, like tow ships. Wim and KB are following the crabs. He says they must be getting close to their home. Ahead, there's like some movement behind this big rock, and then this massive crab moves his claw and starts to climb over the rock. Wim's like, sir or ma'am, and it lets out this huge screech at them. And then the KB's like, I think we're in trouble. So they turn and leave, but they're completely blocked off by all the little crabs. Trouble. KB says that she thinks that they're food, and then they're like, food. Fern and Neil jump onto their ship as it's carried past them. So they must be just extremely lucky that just happens to pass by just a little bit below the point where they'd reached. It's not above them. It's not like, 4 stories down, so they're on top of the ship. Wim and KB try climbing over this rock, and he's like, how come I'm always wrong about who's the good guy? He pulls out a walkie-talkie. He's like, Fern, Neil, come in. KB points to the ship being towed away. Fern's trying to control like one of their little tow vehicles. There's like a control stick on it. So she pilots it down lower so they can try to get Wim and KB. Then they jump on just in time to avoid the giant crab's like claw. And Fern's like, please tell me we got them. Neil's like, we got him. So Fern smiles in relief. Then the giant crab like throws a boulder and takes out one of the tow vehicles. So then they start to spin because now it's just being carried by 3 of them. Their vehicle hits like some rocks and they like fall off. And they're like, any broken bones? Wim's like, Neil, that was amazing. And Neil's like, we're getting good at falling. Fern runs up calling KB, asking if she's okay, gives her his big hug. Wim and Neil come up and like join in the hug. Because Fern asks, she's like, are you okay? KB's like, I am. Wim helped fix my Augs. And she's like, yeah. But he's like, yeah, we made a new microfuse for her resonator housing. And he's like, and then you saved us. He's like just babbling like nonstop. And she's like, yeah, but I never should have left you guys. Like, I'm sorry, I was being so. And he's like, no, you were amazing, and you got the ship and everything. So it's kind of nice that Wim's actually being he's complimenting her. There's not this rivalry between them. Because it's a boy and a girl or whatever like that. So Fern continues. She turns to KB, and Wim continues talking. He's just babbling on to Neil, and she's like, KB, I am so sorry for not listening. And KB's like, no, I'm sorry. I was afraid to tell you when there's things I can't do. And Fern's like, it's okay. You're my best friend. And KB's like, you're my best friend. Then they hug. And Neil's like, guys, you hear that? There's like some rumbling. KB clicks her visor. They go over this like mound. They see a big like furnace scavenging machine scooping up trash and is headed towards the ship. His friend's like, we got to save our ship. So they all scream, start running. Inside the cockpit, they have a good view of this like big trash furnace grinder machine. And Fern's like, anybody know how to start this thing? KB's like, I watched 33 and Jod do it. I think it's something like this. She starts hitting like all these like buttons and switches. And Neil's like, yes, we're going to get out of here. And there's more rumbling. KB says that it's going to take too long to start the ship. So she's going to go and try to jumpstart it. Neil's like, well, who's going to fly the ship? And she's like, you are. And Neil's like, what, me? KB's like, you did it before, Jod. Just do it again. So then there's this like bang. Neil's like, we're too late. Wim's like, no, we're not. It's like, I'll see if I can shoot the thing off. Fern says that she'll steer. Neil can hit the throttle. KB hits like this part of the ship, panels like kind of light up. She says, it's almost ready. The trash machines actually reach the ship. Wim starts like shooting. He's like, it's too invincible. And KB tells him, like, hit it now. They turn on the thrusters, but it's stuck in the trash machine because kind of got like hooks in it. KB gives like one last bit of power. Vern's like, we got to get rid of the hull. And it's like, the engine's overheating. Emergency hull demolition sequencer. And Neil's like, 33 said to never use it. And KB's like, he said, never, ever, ever touch it. So Fern thinks it over. The ship's like starting to get chewed apart. She hits the button. So then the other part of the ship kind of gives off this, like a bunch of explosions, whatever. And then it kind of like sheds the outer hull. So it's almost like a snake shedding its skin or something like that. They fly up. And KB puts out the engine fire. Wim yells. He's like, claims he's on a new ship. So the ship looks totally different. It's like very sleek and everything. And it's like hidden underneath this other whatever. So they made it with a smaller ship. But this definitely looks like a cooler ship now. So that was it. Very, I don't know if I'd say suspenseful, but they almost all died. And that's the crazy thing is, these are just kids, but, they're just barely making it. Okay, then Silo, Season 2, Episode 8, The Book of Quinn. So Juliet quietly curses. She's following the... And again, the Juliet scenes are so incredibly dark. I'm like straining my eyes to see what's going on. I think she's like following like the blood trail. And then she starts getting the bends and she's getting pain and it's like that, like, bending over, whatever. She tries continuing. Bernard, he sneaks off. He goes down to the TV monitoring room. Shirley writes Cooper's names on that names wall where like all the fallen people from the rebellions or whatever. In the lower cafeteria, people are staring at Billings. He's sitting there at a table by himself. Then Shirley comes in. She's like, is this seat taken? And he's like, no. So she sits. And she's like, you are one brave man. He's like, how's that? She's like, we mostly use Maeve's biscuits for counterweights. 2 friends of mine lost teeth trying to bite into them. He's like, well, my wife's always trying to get me to chew food more. And she's like, so what are you going to do now? He's like, I'll do what I can, get some answers. She's like, down here, are you even a sheriff anymore? And he's like, until I'm told otherwise. She's like, so basically you're hiding out. He's like, no, maybe. And she's like, well, in the meantime, why don't you do something useful? Help us. He's like, as far as the pact allows. She's like, I got a question for you. What does the pact say about people who stab someone in the heart and try to pin it on others? He's like, I need proof that. She's like, give me a fudging break. It'll never be proven. The mayor and Sims, they'll be laughing their heads off at your pitiful attempt to bring them to justice, while Walker, Knox, and I swing from the bridge to judicial. The founders established a process, a due process. And she's like, the founders? Have you ever considered that the founders, whoever they fudging were lying through their teeth about everything? He's like, no. If we don't respect the order of things, then it all falls apart. The pact is what we have. Those are the words we live by. And so that's the thing. I did not like Billings in the beginning, but he believes in the pact. And that's, he's such a good guy, but he really believes in this. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not. She's like, there comes a time where you need to stand up and call BS. And she gets up and leaves. Lucas goes to Bernard's, or he goes into an office. I thought it was Bernard's office, but it was actually Judge Meadows' apartment. So there's 2 guys in there, and they're like, who the fudge are you? And he says his name. He mentions that he's Holland's shadow in IT. One guy's like, Holland doesn't have a shadow. The other guy says, meaning you can fudge off. And he starts to pull out something. The guy's like, hey, he's like, this was us being nice. Do you want it to go in the other directions? So he holds out like an ID, and the first guy's like, it's blue. And the other guy's like, yeah, I know colors. And he's like, what are you doing here? So Lucas like, Mayor Holland asked me to find something in Judge's apartment. And the guy's like, what? He's like, I can't tell you. So the second guy's like, Judge Sims orders us to pack up everything and bring it to judicial. And Lucas is like, I don't know what you're going to tell him, but I need to be alone now. So they reluctantly leave. And he starts going through like several books and he tries breaking a code. He looks up at like Salvador Quinn's Descendants on computer. He enters his code on his card, whatever, and he starts writing down names. So then one guy down below is talking to Walker. I forget that guy's name. What was it? I had it. I knew it. Anyways, Teddy. maybe. So they're going up again. Says that they're going to go up late on the far side in those chairs, whatever that Jules and Cooper used at the generator. And Walker says, and somehow by breaking into medical supply without getting noticed, without getting your butts burned, you'll magically make things okay. Knox says that they're running low on everything. Doc Nichols says that they're down to tearing up rags for bandages. And she's like, if your daughter was here, she'd tell these knuckleheads that they're insane to go through with this plan. And Knox well, can you come up with a better idea? And she's like, darn right I can. She's like, you don't need to get to supply to get bandages. You need to get McLean back so she can get bandages. Of course, it's all about her ex-wife, and I get it, but it's like, okay, whatever. So Knox says that getting McLean out of detention is 200% more difficult than breaking into supply, and she's like, I don't give a poop about the odds. It's like, we should at least try. And she sacrificed herself for our sorry butts, but maybe it was more that she knew she couldn't keep up with them, and just she was slowing them down. She's like, that should count for something. And Shirley's like, of course it does, and Walker's like, don't give me any buts. He's like, go ahead, try these things. Get yourself arrested or maybe killed. And guess what? McLean's still locked up and we're double fudged. So Knox tries reasoning. She's like, you know what? Get the hell out of my shop. She's like, go play your stupid game someplace else. I got real work to do. And he's like, come on, walk. She's like, you heard me, out. So they start to leave. And as Shirley turns back, she's like, we all know how much McLean means to you, Walk. And she's like, go. They all leave, and Walker throws whatever she was working on, against the wall. So that's real smart. And her computer starts to beep, and some slick stuff pops up on her screen. So Juliet, tries walking. She's in pain. She's going down. She grabs the hose and she starts walking to the water because what Solo said that if you get the bends, you're supposed to go down underwater until you feel better or something like that. And, how accurate is this? Because this is from, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. He said he, researched stuff, but I don't know anything about the bends myself. Sims is pacing. He's waiting for Edmondson. And then he arrives two of my men were boxing up Meadows' apartment when Lucas Kyle, that little poop you and I sent to the mines, barges in, flashes his new blue ID, says he's there on Bernard's behalf. It's like, what's he doing? And Edmondson's like, I don't know. And even if I did, I couldn't tell you. And he's like, last I look, you work for Judicial, and since I am Judge Sims, that means you work for me. And Edmondson's like, come on, Rob. He's like, when you had my job, did you report to Judge Meadows other than on paper? And Sims has no reply. And Edmondson just kind of nods and walks away. I don't know who's worse. I mean, Sims is bad, but Bernard obviously is worse. But Sims is annoying as well. Walker's headed somewhere. Shirley calls after her, is like, where are you going? She's like, none of your business. And she's like, actually it is, because if you're going more than 10 levels, you need protection. She's like, I had a message on my computer. And Shirley's like, they shut down messaging. Well, they opened it up for me. And Shirley's like, who did? And she's like, groundwater removal. There's a request for a service call. It's like, their pump on 90 isn't working. And she's like, last time I overhauled that, you were still in diapers. And Shirley's like, it's a trap. She's like, I'm guaranteed safe passage. And Shirley's like, for someone who they said is connected to a conspiracy to murder the judge, they said the pump maintenance supersedes everything. Shirley's like, I still think it's a trap. Well, if they throw me in a cell, maybe they'll put me in with Carla. At least I'll have a few hours away from all of you and your stupid plans. So, oh my gosh, Walker is just getting more and more annoying. Juliet's underwater. She's breathing through the tube, again, trying to get rid of the bends. Lucas knocks on someone's door. This lady answers. He holds up his blue badge, says he has some questions, and she's like, good for you. She closes the door on him. He starts knocking again more aggressively. She opens. She's like, look, tell your boss he'll have his wool before the next cleaning, okay? And he's like, okay, ma'am. He's like, this has nothing to do with wool. It's about something of vital importance to the silo. And she's like, you mean like wool? He's like, it's about Salvador Quinn. And she's like, don't know anyone by that name. He's like, okay, well, does Terrence Penbrook live here? And she's like, that's my father-in-law, but he's up at the farms right now. So he's like, okay, well, your father-in-law is a direct descendant of Salvador. And you're, who's there, Josie? And she's like, he's from IT. He says he needs to talk to you about Salvador Quinn. So her father-in-law was there. She was lying. He's like, what do you need to know about that fudging bastard you don't know already? Luke is like, sir, could I just come in? And he's like, no, I got to see to the sheep. I'm later. I'm already late. And Luke's like, sir, I don't think you got a close look at this. He holds up the badge. He's like, at what color it is? You want to be hauled upstairs for an official interrogation? So they let him in. He's like, thank you. Terrence says he's been making wool for cleaning for generations, for 4 generations, and there's this, the kids are going to be the 5th. He's not really a kid, but, whatever. Josie says that they do more than that. They also make blankets, mostly for the up-toppers. And then Terrence's like, what do you want? And Luke's like, there's property that's missing from the archives, property which Mr. Quinn took without authority, and we believe it's still in his descendants' possessions. And they're like, we don't know anything about that. And he's like, no papers, relics, books. And he's like, books? He's like, all the books were destroyed in a rebellion. And why the heck would we keep anything of his anyways? The name Salvador Quinn has brought this family only shame and dishonor. Luke is like, I believe you, and I wish that were enough, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to call for a judicial search team. And he's like, what? We don't have anything. And so Luke is like, I believe you, and I wish that were enough, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to call for a judicial search team. And Josie's like, what? We don't have anything. And Terrence's like, hey, just a minute. And Luke's like, okay, well, then maybe you should just do a thorough search to make sure. I'm going to get a coffee, and then I'll be back. And Josie's like, come on, we don't have anything. He just like walks down, he like leaves. He's walking down the corridor, and then the dude calls after him. He's like, hey, can I give you some advice? He's like, you haven't had that badge very long, have you? It's like, I see you trying so hard to be a tough guy, but it ain't you. It's like, real tough guys, they hardly say anything at all. He kind of whispers, he's like, we don't talk about Salvador Quinn. My family got rid of that name a long time ago. And Luke is like, okay. And he's like, do you know why we make wool for the cleanings? And he's like, no, why? 140 years, and we are still trying to make up for being related to the man who almost destroyed the silo. And he like walks away. So then Lucas talks to Bernard. He said, Quinn's legacy of failures continues. His family was no help. And Bernard's like, Salvador Quinn was not a failure. And he's like, he let the rebels erase the servers. Lucas is like, he let the rebels erase the servers and burn the books. Bernard's like, that's what we've been taught, but it's not the truth. Salvador Quinn saved the silo. Before him, there were rebellions every 20 years or so, and every rebellion risked the opening of the airlock and the death of 10,000 people. Quinn realized that part of the problem was that the people knew about the rebellions that had come before, so he came up with a radical solution. Severed a silo from its history. He cut off access to the servers. He confiscated the books, then blamed the rebels. Luke is like, then how did no one know about what he had done? It's like, surely there was someone. And Bernard's like, he put something in the water, a chemical compound, a drug to make us forget. Not all at once, over the course of weeks, months, years. And the consequence of this was 140 years of peace until now. So Juliet's underwater, and then suddenly she's not getting any more air. So I don't know if something happened. It's so hard to see. So she climbs up to the surface and she looks around, doesn't see anything. Meanwhile, Patrick Kennedy, he's drinking like some concoction. Kathleen, visit him. He says it tastes like his brother's armpit. And she's like, "Whoa!" He's like, "What is this?" She's like, she's like, "I won't even ask how you know what your brother's armpit tastes like." She's like, "But it's passed down from generation to generation." She's like, "Maybe even from the before times." And then Patrick's like, "Oh, your husband seems to know a lot about the before times." And she's like, "How's that?" And he mentions that he showed him the page with all the trees and all the green. And he's like, "What'd you think of it?" And she's like, "It was something." So she's very reluctant to say anything, but Juliet, she makes a move, then she hears this loud clang, and she has I think she has an axe in her hand, and she yells, she's like, "Hey, I don't know where you are, and I don't care, okay? But the man you took has something I need." And she hears something like that, and then there's stop, and there's bright light shines in her eyes, and there's a man, there's someone standing in front of her with a spear or something like that. So she's like, "The man you took has something I need." And the man's like, "I killed him." And she's like, "What?" "And I'll kill you too if you don't get away." And she's like, No. I think it was a man. I don't remember. She said, No. She's like, "Listen, let me talk to him, please." Then the light goes off. "I warned you." And she gets hit, knocked back. At first I thought it was by the spear. And it's like, wait, did it go through or whatever? So she moves away. She breaks off something so she got shot by an arrow. And she breaks it off, and I don't think she was able to pull it out. I don't know. Camille, Sim's wife, she goes to get coffee. Admondson's there, so they start talking, and she's like, "Oh, you must be deep in it, burning both ends." And he says, pretty much 24/7. She's like, "Oh, it must be tough on Marcy, I bet." And she's like, "Yeah, I know all about those hours. It wasn't easy wondering when Rob was coming home, if he was coming home." And Edmondson's like, "Marcy doesn't complain too much." So she's like, "I remember when you came over for dinner, when you first came over, it's like when you were dating." She's like, it was the first time Rob had invited someone, had an agent over. She's like, from then I knew she was strong stuff. She's like, "Now you have a baby on the way?" He's like, "Yeah, it's due in 2 months." So she's like, "It's a blessing. And yet," she's like, "I'm afraid for our children." So he's like, "I'm not sure I follow." She says, "Things are out of control. You more than anyone can see that." He's like, "We're going to have everything sorted out soon. It's those dang greasers from down deep that," she's like, "they're not making things any easier. But isn't the real problem in IT?" And Edmondson's like, "No, I don't think so." She's like, "The mayor's new shadow is a guy who a minute ago was busting rocks in the mines. And we're seconds away from an all-out rebellion." He's like, "Bernard knows what he's doing." She's like, "I hope so. But people are having doubts on all levels, not just the lower ones." Edmondson's like, "I'm just doing my job like your husband is doing his." So he starts to leave, and she stops him. She kind of grabs his arm. She's like, "We're all going to die if we're not careful. My husband has the best interests of the silo in his heart. You have to believe that. He needs you to find out what Bernard Shadow's up to." And he's like, "Even if I were to help, if Bernard were to find out," she's like, One thing is all he's asking. Track Lucas Kyle." But it's like, why does he need to know this so bad? Is he's just so bitter that he's out of the loop, that he's just being nosy? So Edmondson's like, "I swore an oath, Camille, like we all did, Judge Sims included." She's like, "You didn't swear an oath to one man. You swore to the silo. And right now, the silo needs your help." And he's like, "I have to go." So Walker's moving along. She goes, there's a pump room 90, whatever. She walks in. "Mr. Mayor, I heard the pump needs fixing." He's like, "Not anymore." He flips a lever and a red light turns green. And she's like, "That was easy." She starts to leave. He's like, "I heard you wanted to see me." And she's like, "What gave you that idea?" "You turned your camera back on for one thing." "That was a mistake." And he's like, "Well, see, I took it as an invitation." And she's like, "To what? To shoot the poop because we're such good buddies and all?" He's like, "All that, yes. But what I was really hoping for was the chance to negotiate." And he closes the door, then turns the pump off again. Juliet's moving along. She made it to medical. She poured some alcohol in her wound, so thankfully there's still some around. She puts a bandage or something under. So again, I don't know if she got the tip out. She rips some medical tape and to seal it, keep it from getting infected, I guess. Sims' computer beeps. He gets a message. "Judge Sims, thinking of the time you came to my father's funeral. Seems so long ago. I sometimes wonder how that little apple tree has grown. R. Edmondson." So he goes to the orchard area, whatever. Edmondson's there. He mentions that he tried to eat an apple, fruit whenever it's bitter, just like his dad or something like that. Then he's like, "I ran a track and trace on Lucas Kyle." And Sim's like, "I appreciate that very much." And Edmondson's like, "He went from Judge Meadows' place to an apartment in lower mids occupied by Terrence Penbrook. Then he went to Bernard's office." And Sim's like, "What was he doing?" And Edmondson's like, "Looking for something, a book, belonged to Salvador Quinn." And he's like, "What book?" And Edmondson's like, "I don't know. I don't think he knows." Then Sim's like, "Where's he now?" And he's like, "On the stairs, headed down." And Sim's like, "Well, let me know when he gets..." And then he's like, "No. And stop sending your wife asking for favors. I did this for you, Judge Sims, this one time, because I owe you that. But we are done." And he leaves. So it's funny, Sims is just so demanding. He thinks he's entitled. I don't see why he deserves to know anything. And again, why is he so nosy about what Bernard's doing? It's none of his business. Bernard tells Walker McLean is a stubborn one, and she's like, "And then some." He's like, "But detention isn't easy for most." So here we go. He says he doesn't know how long she can hold out. Walker says, let her out. Messing with a couple of ladies who were at the wrong place, the wrong time. And he's like, "Oh, you know better than that." And she says she knows that he doesn't know what he's doing if he's taking them and doing stuff or whatever. And he says that he's trying to save the silo. And he calls her Martha. He's like, oh, on a first name basis with her now. So he says that he's forced to go to any means in order to do so. And she's like, well, bully for you. He's like, what Mechanical is doing, to put it bluntly, will get us all killed. And she's like, so you say. He's like, I do say. And I also say that before I let that happen, your wife will suffer more pain than she ever thought could exist in this life. She won't die, but she will be pleading to the founders to let her die. And Walker's like, please don't. He's like, not to be overly dramatic, but her life is in your hands. And she's like, what do you want? If I had someone that could tell me in advance just what it is your little band of rebels is planning, then I might have a shot of getting things back to normal. So Billings comes to his apartment, asks Kathleen, where's Claire? So they have like a lower apartment, I guess. She says that she's asleep. He's like, dang, is it that late already? And she's just like quiet. He's like, everything okay? And she's like, no, actually. He's like, what happened? She's like, I took some food to Patrick Kennedy today. And he's like, okay. And she's like, you showed him a page from a book made into Before Times. Is that true? And Billings like, I should have known he couldn't keep it to himself. Is it true? He's like, yes. And you showed it to him and not me? So she's jealous? He's like, I shouldn't have shown it to anyone, but I needed to convince him not to tell me, what he needed. She's like, I don't care why. She's like, why would you hold back on sharing something as important as that with me? He's like, because it's dangerous. She's like, I don't care how dangerous it is. Is it true that there was a world outside that was beautiful? And he slowly nods. It's like, how could you not know that? You think they didn't live in a silo forever. And she's like, show it to me. He like shakes his head. He's like, Kathleen, you show it to me. So he pulls it out. She takes like a deep breath. And he's like, there was a whole book of pictures, people, sky, animals, children. And she's like, what happened, Paul? He's like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to do. So Lucas goes back to the Pembrokes. He says that he wants to apologize for before. He was trying to find out something. It's very important, but it doesn't excuse how he acted. He's like, truth is, I'm a kid from the lower mids, and I got lucky getting this job and a fancy ID. And I made the mistake of thinking that maybe I'm something special, but I'm not by a long shot. Salvador Quinn, he was special. He was a hero. The kid's like, I knew it. And then Pembroke's like, don't lie to us, son. He's like, sir, I wish I could tell you how I know, but I can't. And it might be hard for you to trust me, given what an a-hole I was before. But I am telling you, he saved a silo. And then Joe's like, when Judge Meadows visited us, she tried to tell us the same thing. And Luke is like, Judge Meadows came here? When? And she's like, years ago, before Brandon was born. She's like, I think before she became judge. So Luke is like, what did she want? She looks at her father-in-law, and he like kind of nods. And she's like, books, same as you. Didn't care if they were relics. Said that we wouldn't get in any trouble. She had a blue ID just like you. Said that she'd be willing to make an exchange. So Brandon hands him a couple books. And Luke is like, what were the books that you traded for these? She's like, just one, an old copy of the Pact. And Pembroke's like, it was Quinn's. At least his name was on the inside. And Luke's like, that's all she wanted? And then Joe's like, never saw her again. Is it true she was murdered by a couple mechanicals? And Luke is like, that's what they say. He's like, I don't know. Thank you. So Sleazy Bernard says to Walker, he's like, take solace in knowing that 10,000 of your fellow citizens will be grateful for your cooperation. And she's like, can I see her now? Of course. A deal's a deal. He flips the pump lever back again. Juliet's kind of like hiding, whatever, trying to figure out what to do. Several down deepers are using like grappling hooks and rope to climb up. They're sneaking about. Jimmy open like the storage area. Edmondson and several armed raiders are waiting for them. So they're busted. Walker sees McLean just like looking in the little like window in the door. She's like tied to a chair, blindfolded. She's like, what have you done to her? He's like, it's more like what she's done to herself. So she calls her name. She's like, McLean. And he's like, she can't hear you. And she like pounds on the door and he closes the window. He's like, I said that you could see her, and now you have? And she's like, what? He's like, you can see she's alive. And if you want it to stay that way, you'll continue to be my eyes and ears in the down deep. What happened to a deal's a deal? And he's like, I will make you this promise. No harm will come to her if you continue to cooperate. And once this mess is all cleaned up, you will be reunited with your true love once again. You are quite the bastard, aren't you? He's like, yes or no? Yes, damn it. Yes. He's like, good. And it's not that I don't trust you. Actually, I don't. But there will be eyes and ears in the down deep that will make sure that you keep your end of the bargain. So it's like, then what do you need her for? He's like, and I also need you to turn your camera back on. And until this is over, you will stay in your workshop. So he's like making lots of demands on his part. Lucas finds a copy of the pact with Salvador's name in it. He starts up and like trying to break the code again, and it doesn't seem like it's working, so he gets frustrated. But then he looks at a page. He's like, proceed 20 pace, 20 paces for forward, then 2. So he's like, page 99, and he keeps working. And then he's like deciphering stuff. And it's like, if you've gotten this far, you already know the game is rigged. So that's what he's deciphered so far. Lucas walks out of the apartment. Sims is there. You kicked my agents out of this apartment. What's in the bag? And he's like, you can't touch me. He's like, I'm Bernard Holland's shadow. He's like, you have no idea what I can do. So again, Sims, ugh. So he opens his bag. He sees a pack in there. He's like, Mayor Holland asked me to bring this up to him. And Lucas is like, why? And Lucas is like, it belonged to her. He's like, I don't pretend to know what's in Bernard's mind as far as you're concerned. But whatever it is, you should know once he gets what he needs from you, he'll throw you back into mines. Sometime soon, you're going to need a friend. And Lucas is like, a friend like you? He's like, you might think that you know what he wants. I thought I did. But he'll always be 4 moves ahead of you. Watch yourself. That's my advice. And Lucas is like, thank you. Now, if you don't mind, I got to go. He's like, your mother, she works in a hospice on 85. Isn't that right? I'm just guessing she'd hate to have her son as a patient. So now Sims is like threatening to have him beat up. He's just like a big bully. It's like, he sucks. Walker turns on her camera. She pours a drink. Shirley comes in, asks how to go. Is everything okay with the pump? And she's like, burned out capacitor. Could have been worse. And she's like, could have been worse down here. We should have listened to you, Walk. And she's like, what about? She's like, breaking the supply. They caught him. Teddy and his team got arrested. And she's like, anybody killed? And Shirley's like, honestly, we don't know. It's possible, but we can't get any info. And Walker's like, curses. And Shirley's like, Knox and I aren't sure how the raiders found out. There's got to be someone down here, a snitch, We thought we were careful, but I guess not. And then Shirley asks us, like, are you all right? And Walker's like, I'm just tired, long walk. Shirley asks if she saw anything, and Walker's like, just people freaking out, raiders armed to the teeth, ready to move on anyone doing the slightest thing wrong. And Shirley's like, that's it? She's like, yeah, that's not enough for you? And then she's like, sorry, I'm just beat. So Shirley's like, can I get you something? She's like, no, I just need a rest, okay? So she leaves, and Bernard's like watching, and she like flips off the camera, and he's like smiles. Juliet, she sees something, again, it's so hard to see. She sneaks up to, I guess someone's sleeping, so she pulls the cover. The person like gets up, so there's like kind of like a fight. The person tries slamming her with like a can or something, metal, or I don't know, more of a struggle. Then Juliet pulls the mask off, and it's like a woman. And then a man and a woman come down the stairs. One has a bow and arrow. It's like, hey, I already put one of these in your shoulder. There's like one more move, and this one goes right through your heart. And that's where it ends. So there are at least 3 other people in the silo. Did what they do to Solo? Did they actually kill him? What is going on? It's possible with the place being so big that maybe he doesn't know. Now I mentioned I was going back to the book. In the first book, like I said, like maybe like 3/4 of the way, whatever, she leaves her silo. She walks out. She makes it to this silo. She's like heading down. So where I'm at, she hasn't met Solo yet. And, she's trying to figure out what to do. She has this like knife, and there's like one point she had the knife like propped in a door, and then the door, the knife, she thought it like fell in a grate because the door slammed shut. So she tries going after, but then she can hear like someone running down the stairs. And she like tries calling out, and she mentions that there could be other people down there and they could hide, and she'd never see them again because there's so many floors, so many different places, and if there's that many levels and there's so few people, you can easily miss. They could like be hiding out, and when you pass them by, they can go in the opposite direction. where I'm at in the book, I don't know if it's Solo that maybe took her knife or something, or if it's someone else. We'll have to say, yeah. So I don't know what's going on, but it's cool. I recommend reading or listening to the audiobooks. And I believe we have 2 more episodes of Silo left. Okay, so now Squid Game Season 2, and I enjoyed the show. Part of me, I wish I would have gone back and watched the first season again, but I got no time for that. I wish I did. And part of the thing is as I'm watching this, and I enjoyed the first season, but I don't remember everything like perfectly, and I don't know if I was doing something else while I was watching, so I wasn't giving it 100% of my attention, whatever. I think part of the thing is it's hard to remember who the different people were, and sometimes it's hard to really watching the dubbed versions because I don't speak Korean. It's while the voice acting, the dubbing, they do a good job. I don't feel like the voices always kind of match who the person is. So I think sometimes it almost, not that it gets to be generic or whatever, but it's just like hard to tell who's who because they just kind of mesh together. But with this one, it's interesting. So as we know, player 456, spoilers for season 1, 456, he survives, he gets the money and everything like that. Because the first episode kind of picks up from that, where he's at the airport, he's supposed to leave, and then the phone calls like you should have gotten on that plane, or something like that, and then he decides not to go, and then that's where this kind of picks up. So it's at the beginning, it's like, okay, so what are we going to do here? And for the most part, what we find out, this isn't really like major spoilers here, but I'm going to get into spoilers. Pretty not detailed spoilers, but there will be spoilers. Talk about I'll try to talk about each episode or whatever. But what's going on here is 456. He survived everything, and it was pretty horrific. And this is why I wish, like, I feel like I remember certain things, and there's like some things that were similar in this season, but he saw. It was a horrific thing. He saw like people die, and while it was probably only like 6 days, just like whatever. But when you survive this stuff, you kind of develop friendships or just like a kinship or whatever. And just seeing like all these people die and everything like that, just because of these people controlling it, for their amusement, whatever. And so what he decides is that he wants to put a stop to this. He doesn't want this to happen to other people, and he's like using his winning money to try to do what he can to find out where these people are in order to stop it. And they have so much power or whatever, and they're just able to remain hidden. And so that's where this show, like, really kind of this season starts off, where he's spending all his time going over this. Now we also saw this other character who was the son of the front man, the dude in the one mask with the modulated voice, and he's trying to get there because I think the front man killed his brother, who was a cop or something like that. So then the son was trying to get there too, because I think he infiltrated the island as a pink soldier or something like that. So that's where this comes up. Overall, I think they did a good job. There is a thing where you have all these, so many different characters, and I think part of the fun and the thrill is like you don't know who's going to live or who's going to die. Obviously, we're going to get a lot of people that are going to get killed, and that was like one of the shocking things about the first season, where you start to care about these characters, and you're like, oh, this is like a big character, this is an important character, and then they end up getting killed. And it's just like, wait, what? I thought this character would they're the main character, and you just killed them off. And that's like one of the bad things, is because when we're introduced to all these characters, and here we start to hear that everyone has their own story. Why are they there? Why would they agree to do this? How are they in debt? What's going on? And you start to feel for them and see them as like human beings or whatever, and whatever their story is, and then they start to get killed or whatever, and you're like, well, you can't kill this person. Not this person has a really bad life or bad story or whatever, and then something else happens, and it's just crazy. Also, this season, I don't know if there's a couple twists, but there's some couple characters are like, okay, wait, what are their motives? What and they're almost like they're playing both sides. There's two different characters, which that's all I'll say about that because I don't want to like hint any more than that. And as far as like the games themselves, there is the red light, green light. You got to have red light, green light, but then kind of spoiler, it kind of switches from there. And this is one of the things, obviously, whether this is a spoiler or not, 456 is going to make it back. I'll just say that. He is under the assumption that, he has this edge that, he knows what to do. And he's, trying to tell other people, warn them and everything like that. But would they actually run the same exact games every single time? I mean, they could. Why not? You don't expect someone to return. And, I really doubt that they would have many people that would want to return or able to return. There's some interesting things. And so they do a good job because, this is all based on children's games. And I don't know about Korean children's games and all that. They all have a names. They talk about them. So I'm assuming that they're like legit things. But it's interesting seeing how these games are used and then how it gets like so perverted and so deadly when, you have armed guards like just shooting. And I'm trying to, I think we saw like what the underlying motive, it's not just like a entertainment thing, but, there's something more going on with, when they kill the people, like what they do. And it's just, I found it just really interesting. And so, yeah, I sort of binged it like over a week. It took me a while. I didn't watch it all in one day, but I still feel like this is something that would benefit from, just making it last because you want to be able to savor this and not just be done with this. And then, there was the news that, there's going to be another season. So we have that. So we'll talk about that at the end. Like, what could that possibly mean? And because at first when I was watching this, I was like, okay, so they announced that there's a third season. I was like, does that kind of tell us what's going to happen? I mean, to me, the way I looked at it is like the whole point here is 456. I'm going to be calling him Gi. His name is Gi Hun. I think Gi, and I obviously going to be horrific at pronouncing names. So I just call him Gi. And his whole goal is to try to stop the games and all that. But if there's a third season, what does that mean? Does that mean that he fails in this season and then it's going to continue, or what? Or is there something else? So we'll talk about that when we get to the end. Okay, so the first episode, 201, Bread and Lottery. It starts off, like I said, where Guy's at the airport. He decides not to go. He gets a call. He takes a cab. He goes to Seoul. And then he goes to the store. He like feels his body and he cuts out like a tracker that's behind his left ear with like a razor blade. And he's like in the bathroom. He's like completely naked, like looking for it. And this kid walks in. And he's like, "Oh, sorry, kid." I was like, "Oh, shouldn't you like lock the door or something like that?" Then we see this other guy, Jun Ho. So he actually survived. So this is the guy that infiltrated. He got shot by. It was his. No. That's the thing. It wasn't his dad. It was his brother. Okay, so I mentioned the dad. The front man shot Jun, which is his brother. I don't know why he had in his mind that it was his dad. Because he confronted him on the cliff in the first season, and he shot him and he falls off, and you're like, well, he's dead. But he wakes up here like in a hospital, and whatever. So and then it jumps 2 years later. June, he's a police, but he's down to like a traffic officer. Because like he gives this kid like a ticket for not wearing a helmet, whatever like that. Then there's this other guy. He tells him that he should come back to major crimes, and because he wants to help him and everything like that. But then he's like, "Did you get the pictures I sent?" And he's talking about the island and everything. He's like, "Well, your phone fell in the ocean, so we couldn't find any island where you said people were getting killed at, and so I couldn't get the higher ups to believe the story." And then he's like, "Do you remember what the guy who shot you, what he looked like?" And he just lies, and he's like, "No," because he was he gonna say it was my brother. Then there's like this couple walking. They see this hotel, but then no one answers the door. They get an argument, whatever. But it's actually Guy's in this hotel, and he got cameras. He's watching. But then there's like a a knock at the door or something like that, and he or buzz at the front door or whatever, and there's a Squid Game card like placed under his door. So he opens the door with his gun, and the game front man is there. He's like, player 456, looking for these. He holds up like two bloodied severed heads. I don't remember who. I didn't remember who they were. They open their eyes and he screams and he like shoots, but he was dreaming, of course. So it's like, ugh. Then his doorbell rings. So he looks at the camera and the guy's like, guess who? So is this guy that he owed money to, Mr. Kim, because he like brought him food. They've been searching, for 2 years from 10 to 10. There's no sign of him. So basically, this is the guy he owed his money to. He paid him back, and then he kind of like hired him to help try to find a place. So he asked him, to extend the search tomorrow. The first, they're searching all the subways. They're trying to find the guy in the suit playing that square game, like the paper square thing, like flip it. That's how he got the ticket in the first place. So he wants them to go, from the first train to the very last train, check all the lines all at once. And he's like, all of them at the entire day? He's like, that's a big ask. He's like, that's going to be spending a fortune on staffing alone. So he gives him like a satchel of cash because he won all this money from the prize. And then he says that when he got the card to play, it was around this time of year. So if they're starting a new game, they'll probably start recruiting new players. So if they miss opportunities, and that's a whole nother year, they may have to wait. So then Mr. Kim, he's like, okay, I'll do this. He gets in his van with like 7 other guys, and he's like, we'll need everyone. So they're starting at 6, and one guy's like, this doesn't make sense. He's like, do you believe him? And Kim's like, no, but, a lot of people who owed him money have vanished. And so he says that, he doesn't believe it, but he's giving him all this money. So he paid off his debt. Then he hired him, to help search. So, he's like, he's the only reason I can pay all you guys and keep the business running. So he's like, so if we find this guy, then they'll get like a billion won reward. So billion in the Korean money. Junho, he's been going to the docks. He has this friend with, I don't know if it's a friend, but this captain guy who's, they go out on the boat looking for the Mystery Island. We see one of the guys from Mr. Kim, he's telling this room full of men, what they're looking for. So they're all going to search, days go by, they're looking at all these hotels or hotel subways, and, they have to like take a picture, to check in, all this stuff like that. We see Junho, he goes scuba diving, he's looking around islands, not finding anything, and it almost seems like he's ready to quit. Then Mr. Kim and this one guy, Choi, or something like that, they're sitting. Choi's like complaining about the food. He thinks that the Gi Huns lost it because they've been searching all summer, and it's like they've been searching for 2 years. And then he asked Mr. Kim, he's like, do you believe it? And Kim says for him to spend this type of money, that there must be something to it. And the guy's like complaining, just talking about it. And then they hear like a bang, and then like another. And then through like the train on the other platform, they see a guy in a suit. He's playing that slam game, paper square game with someone else. So, and he's playing against like this regular looking guy with like this hat or something like that. He has his briefcase. So Mr. Kim calls Gi, because Gi's been like sitting in the car, like waiting on the radio, like if someone says they found him, then he's going to drive over there. So they call him. He's like, okay. He's like, don't lose him. So he starts driving over there, and then the game's over, and then the guy starts to go up some stairs. So they try to follow him. We do see that the suit guy gave the guy who's playing with a squid card game, and his phone rings, and we see I'm assuming it's his girlfriend. The screen says Jun Hee. She's in a waiting room or something like that. He doesn't answer, and it turns out she has a card too. So a nurse calls her name, but then she left. So then there's like other women like that. So it's like, is she pregnant? So they both going to play this game and not know that they do. So then the suit guy, he buys a bunch of like bread or something, like a bunch of food, and then he buys like 100 scratch cards. Kim and Troy, they like follow him. He goes like this park square. It's like actually a circle, and they refer to him as a recruiter. So he talks to this guy like sleeping on a park bench. He says he looks like he could use some help, and he holds up like a bread roll and a lotto ticket. So when the guy reaches, the recruiter says he can only choose one. So he thinks about it. He goes for the lotto ticket, and then the recruiter hands him a coin. He scratches it, and he lost, and he asks for his coin back, and he walks away. Then he goes, this other person on the bench, he does the same thing. Second guy goes for the ticket, he loses. this lady, and then this other dude. They continue doing that. So like everyone's going for the ticket. One dude gets the bread, and then Mr. Kim wonders, he's like, why isn't he coming up to us? And the other guy's like, dang, I had a lucky dream last night, because he wanted a lottery ticket or something like that. So then after he does, the suit guy stands in the middle of the square. He dumps a bag of bread. Then the second one, and people are watching. One guy's like, why would you waste food? He's like, starts reaching, and then the suit guy, the guy reaches to pick up a piece of bread, whatever, a roll. He like stomps down. He's like, I already gave you a choice. He's like, and you went with the other option. He yells out, he's like, I'm not the one here who wasted this. He's like, that was you people. He starts, like a maniac, starts stomping on all the rolls. He's in the suit and tie and everything. His hair is like just kind of bunts. And then after he's done stomping, just kind of like straightens himself up, like fixes his hair, and then he like leaves. So Guy's like still like, speeding to get over there. And then the suit guy gets in the cab. So Kim and the other guy, they call this other cab, and they say, follow that cab type of thing. Guy gets pulled over. But June, he tells his partner, he's like, why don't you deal with this? So he could have like talked to him, but he doesn't. He's just like, Guy's just sitting there, he writes him a ticket, and then he takes this, he starts to explain to him about the fine or whatever, and then he just like speeds off. So then June's like, that was fast. And he's like, maybe he was hiding something. He's like, did you check his record? And the other cop's like, yeah, there's nothing. He's like, but he had all these phones and tablets in his car. He's like, I couldn't tell what for. So June looks at the name, and they're like, do you recognize it? But, there's like no picture or anything like that. So Kim and the other guy, they see the suit guy get out of the cab. They like follow him through like some alleys or whatever. And Kim says that, he's like, if we wait, we could lose him. So they want to go after him, but the other guy is like scared. So they go down this alley, and they call after him. But then Mr. Kim gets kicked, and then the other guy pulls out a knife, but then suit guy hits him with the briefcase and smashes Mr. Kim like in the face with it. So June, at the station, he looks up Guy's info, and he sees his picture, and he looks up his address. So Guy arrives at the alley where Mr. Kim and the other guy were. He looks around, he tries calling them, but then he pulls out his gun. He sees blood where Mr. Kim was, and he sees the other guy's like knife on the ground. So the suit guy, meanwhile, he's on top of a building, like looking down, but Guy doesn't see him. So June tries tracking down like the car that they pulled over. So it was like, it's a rental car, and he tracks down the company. It's supposed to be like Sunshine Capital or something like that. Mr. Kim and Choi, they're tied up and gagged, and they're blindfolded. So the suit guy pulls out, he puts on like this like classical music. He unmasks them. He says, you two like games, right? He's like, we're going to play one, rock, paper, scissors, -1. The two are going to do like a rock, paper, scissors, and then take one hand back. He's like, if one of you if one of your hands beats the other one, you win. But if you lose, he's like, here's what happened. So it's basically Russian roulette. He's like, I take a single bullet, load it into his revolver, give it a spin, then I aim it at the loser's head, and then give the trigger a good pull. He's like, the odds that you die are 1 in 6. Survival odds are 5 in 6. So then he pulls the trigger on himself, click, and he whistles. Whew. So he's like, okay, is this recruiter guy like unhinged? So then rock, paper, scissors. Mr. Kim does scissors and a rock. The other guy doesn't do anything. So the suit guy is like disqualified. He points a gun to him, pulls the trigger, click, and he spins. He's like, let's play again. So this time both of them play. Mr. Kim loses. He screams. Suit guy pulls the trigger, click. They play again. The other guy loses, pulls the trigger, click. And then the recruiter's like, he's like, it's beginning to get a little boring, isn't it? He's like, let's reverse the odds. So he puts more bullets in. He's like, your odds of survival are now 1 in 6. Odds of death are now 5 in 6. And so Kim and Choi are both like whimpering. So then they start going faster. Rock, paper, scissors, -1. 3 games, like they're both a tie. The fourth, Kim has paper and scissors. The other guy did rock and rock. Okay, so think about it. Choi has rock and rock. Kim has paper and scissors. So all he has to do to beat him is take out the paper. No, take out the scissors. So if he does paper, he wins. So then he's like -1. So Kim doesn't remove either. So then the suit guy's like disqualified. He pulls the trigger, blam. So Mr. Kim is dead. So then to Choi, he's like, congratulations, you won. Now that we're alone, shall we have a little chat? So at the Sunshine Capital, June sees a big padlock. He climbs up, goes in the second floor. It's like raining outside, so he goes in his room. There's like a mannequin suit guy, and the squid guard came pinned to his jacket. So then this thug comes in, says, his boss hasn't called back. June hides behind like the mannequin. The thug opens his like desk drawer. There's a bunch of guns in there. He takes them, and then he notices the window's open, so he just like closes it. But then his phone rings, this guy, so he turns off the light and leaves. June goes to drawers, like all the guns are gone, but then he finds some files, and one is marked Gi Hun, so he gets an address for like the pink hotel where he's staying. Gi arrives, he's talking to someone on phone, but he senses like something is going on, so he goes in cautiously. The recruiter is standing like in front of the like calendar that the Gi's been marking off the days or whatever. He has his back turned. He tells to Guy, he's like, it's been a while. He's like, you really should have gotten on that plane that day. And Guy says that he changed his mind. He wanted to thank him for inviting him to play this game. It's because of him he has all this money now. But then he says that he's just a delivery man. Guy asks, who hired him to deliver all those invitations because he has something he wants to say to them. So the guy's like, I'll gladly pass it along. But Guy says it's not something an underling like him would understand. So, he goes after people in the subway at the end of their rope, so he wouldn't understand. Suit guy recruiter says that he has no idea how he got to where he is. And Guy's like, I really don't care. He's like, I don't care how they managed to turn you into their lapdog. And the suit guy says that, he used to work the games. He worked in incinerators, disposing of the bodies. Then one day they gave him a gun, and he liked the way it felt. So someone had finally acknowledged his existence, and he doesn't know, which year it was. But, there's a man who lost and went over to, to shoot him. He recognized the face. He said, guess who it was? He was like, my dad. I was aiming a weapon at my very own father, and he begged me, tears in his eyes, to spare his life. And you know what I did? And he like aims his gun at Gi Hun's face. He's like, I shot him, bang, right in the middle of his forehead. That's when I knew. I guess I really am cut out for this. And Gi's like, whether you're killing people there or preying on them out here, you are nothing more than an obedient little lapdog. So then suit guy is like, you think just because you won the game that you're suddenly special now? Is that what you believe? He's still holding the gun. Gi like puts his head to the barrel. He's like, someone like you don't get it. You couldn't know or understand what it felt like, what it's like to be there. So then he like pulls the trigger and click. So then he's like, why don't we play a game? So outside, June arrives. So the suit guy talks about Russian roulette again. He wants to make it special. So they each take a turn, but they don't spin after each round. So the first time, at most, it's a 1 in 6 chance. He spins a gun on, like, spin a bottle on the table, and it points to Guy. He takes it, click. Suit guy pulls the gun, click. Gi Hun picks it up. He's like, Mr. Song. He's like, I always wondered how you made it out of there alive, considering how terrible at the Daki, whatever that game, he's like, you were. Click. Suit guy picks up the gun. He puts a barrel in his mouth. Click. So Gi Hun picks up the gun. He's like, what's wrong? Your mind is starting to race? The odds that gun will kill you are 1 in 2 now. He's like, that probably is pretty high, right? He says that he knows what he's thinking. He's like, only 2 shots. He's like, point it at me and pull the trigger a couple times if you want to meet the person you talked about earlier. The key's here in my pocket. All you have to do is shoot me with that gun, and then it's yours. If you do, though, you'll have to admit one thing to me, that you're trash and just as worthless as everyone else, and that you only made it out of the dumpster because you got lucky. So Guy puts the gun to his head, click. Then he hands the gun back, and he's like, what's wrong? Feeling your mind start to race? He's like, that's right. Who cares about the rules? The only thing you have to do now is pull the trigger once, and you could kill me right here. But you'd have to admit one thing to me. All you do is put your little mask on and do whatever your master tells you to do. Roll over, heel, wag your tail, because you're the fudging dog. And then outside, blam. So episode 2, Halloween party. June's like outside hotel in his car in the rain. He hears a gunshot, so he rushes over. He sees the elevators on the 4th floor, so he takes the stairs. In the room, Guy's like sitting across the suit guy's dead body. And he takes a key from his pocket. June's like searching rooms. He finds the guy, Troy. He's like chained to a bed. So he tells him like what room Guy's in. Guy finds a little black envelope with a bow in the suit guy's pocket. June like busts in, tells him, puts his hands up, takes his gun. He says he's under arrest on suspicion of murder. And then Choi knocks him out with like a fire extinguisher. Guy says he doesn't know who he is. Then Choi says that, he explains he worked with Mr. Kim, and he was like in the pictures, the snapshots that they took every day when he checked in. So then he sees a suit guy, and then he asks Guy if he killed him, and he like cursed suit guy. So because he tied them up, he killed the boss, and then Guy's like looks at the card, and it's like Club HGH October 31st at midnight. Then we see there's this woman sleeping in a van. A cop, like, or security knocks on the window, says, she can't sleep there. She's like, oh, sorry, whatever. She's like, and he's like, it's her final warning. So there's something with this woman, and we'll have to find out about her. Choi cleans the blood on the chair. Guy talks to June. He's like in a bathtub, like handcuffed. So he shows him his ID. He's like, oh, I remember you now. He's like, he talked to him one night at his house, and June says that they actually met twice. He's like, the second time was on the island. So it was on the night that the fight broke out. So again, Guy pulls his gun on him, thinks that he worked as one of the guards. June says that he infiltrated the island as one of them so he could find his brother. And Guy's like, how do I know that that's not BS? So June's like, there was a man in a mask who asked if you knew Hwan In Ho. And June says that he infiltrated the island as one of them. So then Guy replied, then they didn't use their names. And June says that Hwang is his older brother. And Guy, he puts on the gun. So June's like, who's the man that you killed, before I got here? And Guy says that he's the recruiter. He finds people, gets them to participate in the game. He's like, and I wasn't the one who fired the gun. We played a game. He just happened to lose. So then June asks if he's, still part of the game, and Guy says that what he wants is to stop the game once and for all. And June's like, how? Guy says that there's somebody he's got to find. He's like the SOB who ran the game, O Il Nam. He's like, do you know who he is? And he's like, all of the guards call him the front man. He's like, do you know what he looks like? And he's like, no, he wore a black mask under his hood. So he's like, how are you going to find him? And he's like, he sent me an invitation. So he's like, so what, are you just going to kill him? He's like, killing one man won't stop it. June says that, there are clients. He saw the face of one, and so he wants to, they want to work. He wants to work together to try to get to the island. Guy takes June and Choi to this other room, and like on his bed, there's like huge stacks, like all his winnings, and he wants to use the money to stop them, and he says that he wants to pay men, because they go in the bathroom. There's like this hole in the run, and there's like all these like guns and rifles, whatever. So he takes them to the bathroom, and there's like all these like rifles and guns and stuff like that. So he tells Choi to put together a team, and he's like, I know just a crew, the best in the business. And then June's like looks, he's like, are these black market? Because he recognized like this one rifle that he used when he was in a service or something like that. He's like, are you sure it even work? Guy pulls back the shower curtain, and there's like this big hole in the wall. So like in the next room, there's like a series of knocked out rooms, and he starts shooting a rifle at like some targets like a couple rooms down. So he tells June, he's like, you can come here and practice anytime you want. And he's like, oh, and you'll have to quit your current job if you're going to work with him. So then it segued to the girl at the hospital. So she works. This is like so weird. She works dressed as like a park mascot, like this big bunny. And there's the mascots give like lollipops to different kids. And there's this one kid that was passed over, but then she gives the kid like a lollipop. And then later the kid comes to the back room where they're not supposed to be, so they have to like scramble to put their suits back on. And she like gave her a picture that she drew. And then it turned out that this girl that gave the picture, her dad is like does like caricatures at the park, and she had like some sort of cancer or something like that. This girl goes to this broker that Guy was at too, because she's looking for her missing daughter. So her name is Kong Noel, and she was the one that was also in the band. So she's trying to find her missing daughter, because I think she was in North Korea and she defected. She left, but she had to leave her daughter behind. So she just wants And the guy, he wouldn't take her money. He's like, I can't find her. I've searched whatever. So then she's in her van, knocking on a window. She thinks it's security. She's like, I'm just leaving or something like that. But the dude knocking knows her name. She rolls down the window and he gives her a Squid Game card and leaves. So it's like, okay, what is that about? June goes to his brother's wife's tomb because it's the 5th anniversary of her death. His mom's like asked if there's any sign of his brother, and he's like, no. Noelle. She quits the amusement park job, says that something came up. Guy gets a tooth yanked out of his tooth and like a fake tooth with a tracker put in because he's going to try to make it to the game so that they can follow him. So they have like all these ex-Marines and they're target practicing. Guy calls his son, but he won't talk to him, and his son is like, hello. He's like, Dad. So he still can't bring himself to talk to his kid. So Noelle calls a number on a card. They ask like her birth date or something like that. So her name and the date of birth is confirmed. She was born in 1994, and then she's told where to go. So Guy and Troy to go to this club. He sees a guy like it's Halloween, and so a lot of people are wearing costumes, and they see like one guy in a pink suit. He actually goes up to Guy later. Troy he gets drugged or something like that because he gets knocked. He's unconscious. Guy leaves with the guy in a suit. So June comes in. He checks the tracker. And he sees that they've moved out of the building. So he radios the other guys, to get ready. June is taking this big white limo, and June runs up just to see the limo pull away. So he radios, the others. But then there's like this radio sitting on like a table in the limo. The front man says it's the same car, so he thought he'd have a good life, and he just put the game behind him. So he should have gotten on the plane. He asks Guy, what does he want? And he says that he wants to stop the game once and for all. And the voice says, people choose to play, but Guy says that it's all about the clients watching, them die one by one. There's a van full of soldiers. They said the limo's just kind of circling. So they might be onto them. And then a sniper shoots a tire of the van, and another one. June's car has this little device that like blows under the tire, so they can't chase after the limo. So June tells the driver, stop the car. There's a shoot. They start getting shot, but it's bulletproof or whatever. So Guy tells them that send them back in a game. He's like, the returning winner. He's like, your clients would love it. And June's like listening on the radio. He says that he wants to prove him wrong, that the world doesn't work the way he thinks it will. The voice is like, so be it. So gas starts filling the limo. The driver partition goes down. The front man is in the passenger seat. He's like, player 456, welcome back in the game. And June's like listening, hears this. He's like, plan B just went into effect. And then we see Noelle she's in the parking lot. There's like some semi-trailers. She goes in, she enters this room marked 011, and the trucks start pulling away. There's like 3 different semis. She goes into this little room, and she puts on a pink suit with a triangle mask. So Noelle is actually one of the soldiers. She's not a player. So it's like, what is that about? So then the third episode. See, this is why I feel like it's going to take so long. It's like we're already like 30 minutes, and we're on the third episode. Third episode 001. And this is where it's like, I don't know how in depth I should go about this. So when, because Troy is worried that they're going to kill him, but June's like, if they want him dead, they would have killed him already. And they still got the tracker in the suit. Guy wakes up in a bed. He's in a jumpsuit. There's a bunch of other people. He has 456 on his chest again. And they get all the like quadruple bunk beds or whatever, quintuple, whatever. There's this one lady talking about bad karma and stuff like that. So then the pink soldiers come in. They mentioned like 6 days. This one woman interrupts. Then others like, if it's just a game, why are they wearing masks? And some dude asks if it's some sort of illegal casino. Woman asks if she was stripped when they were brought in. She says that the size is wrong in the color, whatever. So then this dude complains that his shoes were limited edition, and the other dude asks about his phone. He's like, I need to check how my crypto's doing. He's like, are you going to compensate me if I can't trade? The soldier kind of gets tired, and he calls out his name. He's like, number 333. He's like, says his name. So he was the last guy that we saw playing the game in the subway. So apparently he had like some sort of like YouTube channel or something like that. He was dealing with crypto. He caused lots of people to lose money and then disappeared. And there's like current debt is 1.8 million or billion, 1.8 billion won. This shuts up the guy. The lady complaining about the suit, she had a total debt of 330 million. He continues listing like other people's names. Their images are shown on the screen, like how much they owe. He says that every player in this room is on the brink of financial ruin, so they cannot hope to pay off their debt. So they played a game, they called, and they volunteered to play this game. Okay, then they're showed like the big empty piggy bank above, and someone's asked what's the total prize. So the soldier's like 45.6 billion won. I guess that I did the conversion, or I looked at the conversion. So it's like $30.9 million US, that would be. And someone asks if only one person gets it. And the dude says that the details and how it's given out will be told after the first game. They also have a special offer that they never offered before. After each game, they'll be given the chance to vote whether they would like to end the game there or keep playing. If the majority wishes to stop, the games will be terminated, and they can then take the prize money accumulated and leave. And Guy yells out, he's like, hold on. He's like, after game one, if we vote to go, then the prize money gets divided among us? And the guy's like, that is correct. And then Guy kind of like turns to the camera, front man's watching, and then this older lady like pushes her way through. So there's this old lady, and her son is also playing. So, the lady and her son are like, what are you doing here? Whatever. They're like told to be quiet. Then later, 333, the crypto guy, he gets threatened by this other dude with purple hair, 230. His name is Thanos. He's some sort of rapper or something like that. So some people like recognize him or whatever. This guy, Jung Bei, 390, he calls out Guy's name, and Guy's like, he's like, you're alive? He's like, what are you doing here? So the friend says that he heard that Guy's mother died. He's like, he didn't even bother to call him, and he mentioned he's got divorced or whatever. On the boat, June sets off a drone from the ship. They're looking around, and they're looking at this one island. Players enter this large room. Thanos, he tries talking to this 196, this one lady. She's not showing any interest, and he's like, you know who I am? And she's like, should I? And he starts like talking some more. And she's like, is this you trying to flirt? This guy's like such a dork. And, he does some like lame rapping about being together, whatever. She just like scoffs at him. They ask her like, what's over there? So it's a red light, green light, giant doll. So meanwhile, June and those guys and Choi, they track the tooth tracker to this island, and they find some guy on this island. They go up and at the same time, Guy is like reaching for his tooth. So they go up to this guy on the island. He's like this fisherman, and the beeping is around there. So they start looking through his tackle gear, and then Choi finds the tracker in a tin of worms. Guy pulls out his tooth, and the tracker's, it's empty. The tracker's been removed. So he realizes that he's kind of screwed up. The fisherman said that he got the bait on a dock. Some guy gave him a container of leftover bait. Choi calls June, says that they're onto them, and then they threw them off. So now they have no idea where Guy's at. So Guy removes the tooth. He drops it instead of leaving it in his mouth. And then he moves out in front. He yells to get their attention. He's like, it's not just a game. He's like, it's more than that. He's like, if you move at the red light, you're going to be shot. People just like kind of like chuckle and scoff at him. 196 like thinks he's drunk. This other person's like, he's just trying to freak them out. And then the doll turns. Front man takes off his mask while sitting, and he's like, he has a drink. He's like, green light, red light. Guy yells, he's like, hold. The eyes scan, green light, and then he's like, hold still. So then green light, and then red light, and then green light. So then Guy isn't moving. He covers his mouth during red light, and he's like, hold still. So everyone's making it, and 196 like, is that guy high? And Thanos like, there's a bee on you. And she like freaks out and screams. And then she's like, oh, poop, I just moved, didn't I? And then, blam, she gets shot in the head, and blood splatters on Thanos. So Guy's like, nobody move. This lady glares over at 196, sees her body, she screams, she gets shot. Others start freaking out, and they get shot. Guy's like yelling, he's like, don't move. People start running back to the entrance, shot, shot, shot. At the gate, more people are getting shot. So then the rules are repeated, so they're told that if the movement is detected, or if they go backwards, they're going to be shot. So green light, no one moves. And then, green light, Guy runs. Thanos, digs out this big crucifix around his neck. And then red light. The crucifix has pills in there. So green light, Thanos takes a pill. It's like some drug or whatever. So Guy's at the front now. He covers his mouth. And he's like, if we don't cross the line, they'll still kill you. So he's like, look at the doll's eyes. It scans for motions, but it can't detect you if you're behind something. He's like making hand signals behind his back. He's like, if you're short, line up behind someone taller than you. It's like single file, form a conga line. So green light, they start forming several different lines. And so Jung, his friends, he's behind Guy now. and this one lady's hands are like shaking. She gets shot. So there's several lines. Thanos, he actually shoves like the guy in front of him. So 4 people fall, they get shot. And he's like, tag. So he's like tripping now. So a few more goes. And then they start playing like Fly Me to the Moon, like kind of like a rock version, whatever. Guy yells, he's like, run for it, go. They start crossing the line. Thanos is just like skipping because he's all drugged up. So 30 seconds, Guy ends up going back out because one guy got shot in the leg, but it was because the person in front of him fell. And then this lady helps Guy get this guy to his feet. 5 seconds, slow motion, they make it. And then the guy asks the lady for help, but then blam, he gets shot again by 011. Noelle shot him. And another pink soldier or shooter is like, was that you? And she's like, he lost, so she took him out. She's not a good person. Guy's like standing, he's like, looks around. On the boat, Troy's like, what should they do? Because, they can't do nothing. Maybe he's like search surrounding islands. But June says that they just want to lure him there for a reason. And then the captain says there's a storm coming in. So Troy wonders, how they found a tooth. Did one of the guys get drunk and blab about it? They just like stare at him. But it's like, if they found a tooth, like how come they didn't find Thanos' drugs, or do they just not care? So the players are back at the bunk. They're kind of sullen except for Thanos. Guy's friends asking about the doll. Did it have guns in its eyes? And Guy's like, no, there's shooters in the wall. And the friend's like, how do you know? Then this alarm goes off. I think it's like 8 pink soldiers come in, said that congratulations, out of 456 players, 91 have been eliminated, which means 365 players completed the first game. Then the guy's like, old lady mom gets the floor. She begs to let them go. She's like, don't kill them. Like blah, blah, blah. And he's like, players, there seemed to be a misunderstanding. And more people start coming and begging, so they'll do whatever they can. And so the guy's like, we are not trying to hurt you or collect your debt. We are simply providing you with an opportunity. Guy yells out, he's like, consent form 3. If the others kind of get quiet, he's like, if the majority of the players agree to stop playing, the games will be terminated. Isn't that correct? The guy's like, that is correct. Then we'll do that. We'll put it to a vote, if that is what you would like. The pig has some money dropped down inside, and people are staring like if they're mesmerized by it. So he's like, the guy's like, a total of 91 players were eliminated. During the game, a total of 91 players were eliminated during the first game. Therefore, 9.1 billion won has accumulated so far. Divided by 365 means they get $16,924.99 each. So 100 million won is added for each player that's eliminated. He's like, if you decide to play the next game and more players are eliminated, then the total prize money will increase again. So the 45.6 billion will be divided among all players who make it through all 6 games without getting eliminated. Once each game is concluded, you may call for a vote. So you push a button, whatever. So they're going to start with the highest number, lowest. So 456, Guy votes to stop. This goes on. Like Thanos, he skips up, he votes to continue. So it just keeps going, it's like 87, 93. Guy yells, he's like, don't do this yourself, just think. He's like, can't you see what's going on? So people start complaining him he's trying to scare them. And then they're like, who is this guy? And he's like, whatever. So Guy's like, I played these games before. And it gets quiet. He's like, I've said I played these games before. It's like, I knew about the first game because I'd already done it. He's like, because I played the exact same one. I was here 3 years ago and I played them all. And every single person who was there with me, they were all killed, every one. So people are like murmuring. And then they're like, wait, if everyone died, how did you survive? Unless you're saying that you were the only winner? He's like, it's true. I was the only one who made it. I was like, I guarantee if you keep playing, everyone in this room will end up like those players. We'll all be killed. And one older annoying guy, I think he's number 100, he says it's BS. And he's like, if you won 45.6 billion, why'd you come back? This lady's like, you must be lying. But then Thanos is like, if he won, then, he can give them tips. So he's like, let's take the money. They keep voting. So now they think, instead of like listening to him and quitting, they think they have an edge. So it's like 167 to 164 to quit. More people are voting. Then it's 180 to 181. The old lady's son votes to quit. It ends up at 181 to 181. Then it's 182 to 181. And then it goes to 182 to 182. So Blink 182. Then finally, player 001, which is the name of the episode, right? Each side is like X, 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 other, O. So player 001 walks up. And it's just like, okay, who is it? So he votes to continue. He turns around. Player 001 is a front man. What? Why? What is going on here? Why is he infiltrating? And he's acting like he's a player. Episode 4. I just want to end it here because I feel like I shouldn't. But again, if you want to know, because I want to talk about the ending. So 001, he tells Guy that, he's the reason why he voted to continue. And, he asks him, why did he come back and stuff like that. And so, he says that he wants to stop the game, whatever. Thanos and this other guy who was a promoter or something like that, he kind of recognizes Thanos. He's trying to get his drugs too. They talk to the crypto guy, and they're like bullying him. And Thanos shoves like the fried egg in his face. They like start getting a fight because Thanos lost his money because of him. And crypto guy's like, before he's like, I didn't tell you what to do. I just gave suggestions. So they're fighting. And then, but it's like 2 against 1. The guards aren't doing anything. So Guy's friend says this other guy that they should, someone could get hurt. They should do something. But then 001 gets up. He's like, what makes you think you can behave like that? He's like, especially when people are eating and in front of your elders too. It's bad manners. Shame on you guys. Thanos like, you're in here just like everyone else. So cut the lecture, granddad. He's like, how about instead of yip-yapping at me, you go back home to your own kids. You yell at them. And he's like, what did you say? And I was like, I said, save the lecture for your own kids. So 001 grabs him by the side of the throat, and the other guy comes up, and 001 kicks him in the shin, and then kicks him down, and he lets go of Thanos. Thanos moves to punch him, but then 001 hits him in the chest, and then Thanos kind of like leans forward, and 001 grabs him by his finger, twists his arm. You hear like bones crack, but I don't know if he actually broke anything or not. Then 001 kicks him twice in the chest, like while he's down. He grabs him by the throat, he cocks his fists back. And then he's like, I'm sorry, sir. He's like, please, I can't. He's like gasping. He's like, I'm sorry, let's go. And then people applaud. And Guy seems impressed. Again, this is 001. He's a front man. Is he doing this on purpose? So like at night, people are sleeping, or some people are still awake or whatever. But 001, he apologizes to Guy because, he says it's his fault for the vote, but, why they're there. But then he starts telling a story that his wife's back home is like very sick. She was diagnosed with acute cirrhosis and she needs new liver. And while they're running tests on her, they found out that she was pregnant. So the hospital suggested an abortion, but she wanted to go through with it, even if it means dying. So she's stubborn, that's an understatement. They're struggling to find a donor. So he took money from one of their oldest clients who wanted to help. But then someone said it looked like a bribe, so then he was fired from his position after years of service. So he has to win the prize money, even at the cost of other people's lives, to save his wife and his child. So he doesn't care how he gets the money. And we see like some pink guys are like opening up like a dead body, and one guy's like, "That's it." So they're like, "What do you mean that's it?" There's like this little baggie. They're sort of farming like organs, whatever. The guy's like, "This one's been dead so long. It's like we're only able to save the eyes." And he's like, I told you not to kill them. It's like, we need them breathing if we want anything good. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I left a bunch alive for you. He's like, well, someone else popped that guy in the head to finish the job. So it was 011. He's like, same with this one over here. So 001 or 011, the lady, she's shooting people, whatever. She gets like called in to talk to like the manager, the boss guy or whatever. Because while she's sleeping, so the door opens up, says that the officer wants to see her, so she gets dressed, she goes there, and she goes up a bunch of stairs, and he's like, I heard you shot players who were still breathing so you could confirm the kills. And she's like, I did the task that was given to me. And he's like, how long has it been since we met each other? And she's like, I can't recall at this point. So he lights a cigarette. He's like, if memory serves, it was right around 7 years ago. The very first time I went to see you, you were lying in your bed, that dusty old hospital, just staring up at the ceiling like a zombie. I couldn't believe you killed a team pursuing you with one rifle and got past the fences into the demarcation line without any kind of help at all. I saw you in that bed and felt sorry for you. So I decided to give you a chance to start over. And she's like, and I'll always be grateful for your help, sir. He's like, then you should do what you're told. And she's like, sir, I don't think I will. He's like, you're worried the boss is going to find out? That shouldn't concern you. Last time we had a player due to surgeries in exchange for information about the the games they were going to play. This time, we actually brought a doctor here ourselves. There's no way anyone will find out about it, even if they do. She's like, that's not my issue. He's like, then what is it, huh? He's like, when you met me, you said you wanted to find that kid you left behind. And if I can make that happen, you'd do anything. Has something changed? She's like, back when you told me what I'd have to do in here, the way you said it, I'd be helping people with no hope, end their misery, so they wouldn't have to suffer anymore. She's like, and I believed you. That's why I came here. You've changed her, not me. And he's like, either way, they'll end up dead. All we're doing is using their organs to help save others. What's wrong with that? She's like, if there is nothing else, sir, I would like to be dismissed. So then time for a second game. Guy walks up to get, because he told him about the game, I forget what it's called, where you have to cut out the shapes. And he's like, triangle's the easiest one. So he walks up to get his tin, and it's a big triangle, but pretty much made up of a tiny bunch of little ones. So a lot of ridges around the edge. And then Guy's friend starts to freak out. They all look at the triangle line. They're like, this is the easiest one. He's like, we're all going to die, whatever. But it was another dream. So the pregnant girl, she talks to her boyfriend. Her boyfriend's a crypto guy. So he's surprised that, she's there. And she said that he's the one that told her to buy all that crypto. And he asked her about, getting an abortion, like he said. And she said that, she didn't. Thanos takes another pill. They all go into the big room. So they're ready to get their tins, whatever. But there's like two big rainbow circles. And they're told that this one they'll break into teams. And so take the next 10 minutes to break into teams of 5. And then they start going up to Guy or ask, they're like, wait, what do you mean? Because I think the game's called Dalton or something like that. They're like, wait, what, dude, there's no teams in this. And then the one annoying older guy is like, if it's not that, then what game are we doing? What is this? But Guy says he doesn't know what they're playing. They're like, what? You said that you've done this before. He's like, or are you lying? But it's so annoying. It's like, he says he's sorry, but like it's so hard to understand that they probably changed the games, especially if they know that he, did those before. So because the guy's like, how are you going to feel about those who died because they stayed after what you said? But he gets in his face. He's like, 01 gets in his face. He's like, that's enough. So 001 says he still believes him. He's like, he'll be on his team. So his friend 390, there's this Marine kid, because Guy's friend was in the Marine. So this other kid, he was a Marine. He has a tattoo. So he's like, yes, sir. He's like doing whatever. Crypto guy tries getting his ex to be on his team, but she doesn't want anything to do with him. 388 finds like this other Marine guy to join them, 222. But then the girl asks if she can, that the pregnant one. So what they have to do here, it's a 6-legged pentathlon. So they start with their legs tied together. At 10-meter intervals on a track, one member will play a mini game. If the player wins, then the team moves to the next challenge. So the first one is the folded paper square game. The second one is like flying stone, where there's like one stone like standing up, and you have to knock it down with the other stone. Game 3 is gong ji. So there's like these 5 colored game pieces. It's almost like jacks, where you have to throw them and pick them up, or whatever the series of tries or something like that. Game 4 is a spinning top, where you have to, with a string, you have to tie the string and then fling it to make it spin. Game 5, I think it's called jeggy or something like that. So there's this it's like a round thing with like a bunch of streamers, almost like a pon-pon. So they'll have 5 minutes. So to win, they have to complete all the mini games and cross the line before the time runs out. Guy's team figures that the girl can do the pom-pom game, but she's never played that. So the Marine guy says that, or not the pom-pom game, but this other game with the colors. He says that he knows because he grew up with sisters. The girl says that she can do the paper square game because she beat the Subway guy like more times than he did. His friend says that he can do the stones one. Guy asks 001 which one he wants, and he says that he doesn't know, but he'll do whatever Guy wants. And he says his name. He's like, Guy Juan. And Guy's like, how did you know my name? And 001's like, oh, I overheard your friend talk about it, so I thought I'd try it out too. Does it bother you? He's like, no. So Guy says that he'll do the jeggy, whatever, and 001 will do the spinning top. There's 2 teams that go at a time, and it's like with the throwing stone things, like if you miss, you have to go back and get the rock together and then come back again. And the same thing with the top. So their legs are tied together. They're like in a line, 5 going across. The first one, both teams get eliminated because of time. And then so 011, when they're cleaning out the guards, they like marked a little casket. They put like a little X or like a little plus on there. So 001, she goes, or 011, she goes up, tells them to open, she shoots twice. And then like the boss dude is watching. So she insists on killing them. So then the next team is going to be the mother and the son. There's this transgender girl, a guy that's transitioning, this one other little girl, and then this one lady who's all about like karma and God and stuff like that. So that's where the fourth episode ends. Fifth one's one more game. It's like this time they only focus on the one team. So like the girl takes like 40 seconds to do the paper square. The son misses the first stone. 120 the transgender. You're just like good at leading it, like telling them like how they should do it and everything like that. And like so instead of just like go forward slowly and then backwards instead of turning around. And the other like I forget someone notices like, oh, you save time by going backwards instead of turning around. So he makes it on the second throw. They have 3 minutes 30 seconds left. Ma does the colored pieces, Jack's game, and so she's she gets that. The karma lady does the top, and she glances at the blood for a second, and she's struggling to wrap the top, and she's just so annoying, and they're trying to help her, and she's just like barking and whatever. So then after about a minute, she like gives up, but she's like, the gods are going to let us die. 120 slaps her in the face twice, and then picks up the top and says that if she gives up, then she's like, I'll kill you before the guns do. So it's like 35 seconds. She spins it. She gets it. So one more. You have to kick the pom-pom 5 times, like just in a row. So they're done. They have 6 seconds. They make it across the line, and everyone like cheers. But they didn't even show the other team. So several more people play, several more win, but then some start losing and getting shot. And there's like one team was like almost at the finish line. There's lots of like blood like all over like the floors. Like at first I was like, are people going to slip on this? Because whatever. And then the final 2 teams, it's Guy's team. His friend Jung mentions how it's weird not to play without an audience. But 001 says they got this. He has faith. They have a previous winner with them. So the pregnant girl knocks a square over the first time, so she gets it. Friend tosses a stone, knocks it over first try. Marine kid does the jacks pieces. He does like super fast. So they're like cruising through, like first tries and everything. Like 3 minutes, 30 seconds left. 001 with the top, he doesn't make it on the first try. So they're 30, because it took them a while to tie up the rope. So they have 3 minutes. They go back. Then he flings it and ends up going like behind them. They're like, how'd you do that? So it's like, is he doing that on purpose? Now, this is an interesting thing. What I saw, apparently someone on Twitter said this, and I saw an article about this, where, so with the front man, at the end of the first episode, or first season, when we first see him, he's sitting in a chair. When he takes off his mask, he pours himself a drink. He's left-handed. So he opens a bottle, pours it with his left, drinks with his left, and so basically, everything he does, he's left-handed. But then when he does the top, he spins it with his right, he misses. Spins it with his right, he misses. And then, so again, it feels like he's messing up. He starts like yelling and slapping himself. They're kind of like freaking out. Then Guy gets him to calm down. It's like, deep breath. They have 53 seconds and 45. He throws it, but he throws it with his right hand. Or no, he throws it with his left hand and it spins. So he did that on purpose. So he got 22 seconds and then they got to do the kick thing. So Guy hits it 1, 2, 3, 4, but then it kind of goes too far out. 001 extends their joined leg together, and Guy's foot still hits it. His left foot hits it, whatever, and I guess it's still good. So they go to the finish line. They make it with like 1 second. So they're like they made it, but then there's gunfire. The other team didn't make it. They come into the bunk room, and like the annoying guy, 100. He's like not happy when they walk in because that means more people that they have to split the money with. Oh, as 011, she goes into her room, but as she walks in, 2 guys like barge in with her, and they're being watched on camera, but a guard at the monitor switches the camera to like a previous loop. So one dude takes off her mask. He's like, oh, I thought you'd be like some kind of freak. They're like, check her out, whatever. It's not too bad. And she's like, what are you doing? She's like, you know this is against the rule. The second guy's like, what rules? He's like, if you're not going to help us, then you should have stayed out of our way. So they're like threatening her. She's like, I'm going to report this. And the first guy takes off his mask. He's like, who's going to listen? The officer? He's like, how long do you think that lifeline is going to last? He's like, he already cut you loose. He's like, you're done. And the second guy gets like, he's going to, he gets like close. He's like, I'm going to lay out the situation. She headsbutt him and then like pushes the first guy like or punches him in the face. And then the second comes at her and she kicks and then hits him in the gut. But the first guy grabs her, slams her against the wall. She knees him, but then he flings her down, pins her down. Second guy pulls out a knife and he like pulls up to her cheek. And he's like, oh, it's like, I'm torn whether I should mess up your pretty face or cut off your fingers so you can't pull your trigger anymore. He's like, final warning, girl. It's like, you get in our way one more time, I'll slice your fingers off one by one and burn them in an incinerator. He's like, then I'll have a little fun with you. They get up and leave. So 011 apologizes to the other. They're like, whatever, don't worry about it. They talk, they want, the Marine kid wants to tell each other their real names. After that, then the manager dude comes in, said the results, another 110 players were eliminated. Total's now 20.1 billion won, which means $13,694,383.26. There's 225 players, so that means they would get $53,000, $53,703.46 each. And the guy's like, that's not even, so he gets 78.9 million won. And they're like, that's not even 100 million. And they're like, only 110 died? He's like, you killed all those people. He's like, did you miss anyone? He's like, there's got to be more dead. So now they don't even care about people dying. They're starting to get greedy. So 001 says that now he wants to leave, so they're going to vote again. They start with 01. He votes to stop. It keeps going. And Guy's going to, it's going back and forth. It's like tied almost again. So Guy's about to give another speech, but then he gets cut off by 01. He's like, everyone. And, he says that he stood by, watched them kill all those people, or they watched everyone, and they still want to go on. He's like, you think you won't be the next one to die? He's like, you keep going, we're all going to die. He's like, use your heads for once. You need to survive. He's like, then you can think about the future. So then that annoying guy, 100, is like, oh yeah, what does 70 million do for us, huh? He's like, I don't know how much debt you're in, but for all these folks, that prize isn't nearly enough. So it just keeps going like that. So it more votes, whatever, ends up being 115 to 139. So they're going to play the third game tomorrow. Oh, and Guy's friend voted to continue. And later, he apologized. He's sitting by himself with the Marine kids, like, oh, come sit with us or whatever. So he apologizes, but they're like, well, even if you voted to stay or to leave, it wouldn't have mattered because there's so many other people and stuff like that. In the bathroom, Thanos and his crony, they threaten crypto guy again, blah, blah, blah. So it's going to be lights out in 10 minutes. Guy says that they have to set up barricades because people might try to kill them during the night. And 001 says he's overreacting, but Guy says that he's seen people turn into monsters. So, they have no idea. So, they're going to take shifts. And at one point, Guy's friend, Jung, he gets up, but Guy says that he's still awake. So they're like talking a little bit, and 001's like listening, pretending to be asleep. They're at one point, the pregnant girl had to go to the bathroom. Ma goes with her, and 120, the transgender girl, she goes with. At first, the guard's not going to let them through, but then Ma convinces them to go. They're in the bathroom, and she's in the stall for a while, and then they're like waiting for a while. Then Ma finally opens the door, and she's like crying because she says she's scared. But, so she comforts her or whatever. So then next day, morning, Thanos takes another pill. Tweaker asks for another pill. 011 puts on her uniform. The third game is kind of like this big top circus room. There's a merry-go-round, like horses in the middle. The voice says that the game is mingle. So all players will step onto the platform in the center of the arena. Once the game begins, the platform will spin. Shortly after, a number will be called out. You must then form a group that matches this number, enter one of the surrounding rooms, because there's like all these doors all around, and then close the door within 30 seconds or be eliminated. So the group starts talking about strategies, the platform starts spinning. That's the end of the fifth episode. Because they already have groups of 5, so they start talking about it like, well, what do you do if there's, if there's 5, they can do that, if there's, so forth. So the platform spins, music stops, And at first there's like 10 players, so 30 seconds. Lots of arguing. Guy's team of 5 goes up to Ma's team of 4. Then they grab the Karma lady, and Guy looks out the window, sees people getting shot who are outside. 001's like watching Guy closely. And then the Karma lady says, like, Guy's there for a reason. It's destiny. Forklift boxes start taking, remove the people who are shot. The ones who are still alive, get marked. Next round, I thought people were going to be slipping on the floor, but that doesn't really happen. So the music, they spin, music stops, 4 players. So like Thanos kicks like one guy, and they end up leaving the Karma lady behind. 001 tells his group to go without him, because he says he'll find another group. So Guy stresses, he's like at the door, he's like hanging out. One room only has 3 people. They get eliminated. They just like stick the gun in the window and shoot them. And Karma lady gives like Ma's group the stink eye, and the pregnant girl, because they basically kicked her out. Guy's group, they calls out for like 001. He made it. So next round, 3 players. So Ma's group splits up, says they'll each find one. So Guy and 001 call out they need one more. The son, he gets dragged away from his mom. He's like kind of fights off, but then she's just like left there standing. And then she gets pulled by Guy and 001. So they were in there, more shooting. 001 says something to her about her son. He's like, oh, I'm sure he did. And she like defends her son. It's like, oh, how dare you, whatever, all this stuff like that. But he didn't really put up that much of a fight, even though he should have. So in Thanos' group, there's this one kid. I haven't really mentioned it. The tweaker guy is kind of like bullying him. So I kind of refer to him as like wimpy kid. There's this one tough girl that was in there too. When it was Thanos, tweaker, the wimpy kid, and tough girl, when it was like 3, they're gonna do rock, paper, scissors, and she's like, she puts her hand out to wimpy kid to go with her, and then he does scissors. So she lost, they leave, and then she survives, and she just kind of gives him like a cold stare because he like kind of turned on her to go with the others. So next round is 6 players. Like one girl gets like knocked down. That's whatever with one group. 330, the crypto guy pushes his way in, and then the girl gets shot outside. 120, transition girl gets like mad at him, and he's like, I saved you. He's like, because the pregnant girl's in there. And, he's like, she wouldn't have made it. It's like, they would have shot you. And she's like, he's right. So she kind of like, defends him. So now there's, I think 126 people left, players. It's a final round. The friend asks, he's like, what number do you think is next? 001 says like 2. He's like, there's 126 and there are 50 rooms. So there'd only be room for 100 of them. If you don't find one fast, you're done for. The platform stops, 2 players. So they scrambled. 001 and June go in a room, but there's already a guy in there. 001, because they like pulled, like one guy got pulled out or something like that, and then he's like, we were already in here. So 001 puts him like in a sleeper hold and like snaps his neck, and June, the Guy's friend, is kind of like shocked. So I guess that counts, like he's dead, so there's only 2 in there. So they walk back to the bunk room after that. On the boat, they used a drone, and they like saw something in the trees, looked like a hatch, but they couldn't really tell because of trees, so they're gonna have to go to the boats. Back in the bunk room, Crypto tries talking to the pregnant girl, saying that he wants to start over, so after the next vote they could pool their money, they could be a family, he could pay off a few debts and invest the rest. He's like, no more coins of crypto. He knows some investment guys and stuff like that, but she's like, it's like, you don't want me or a child, you just want the money. He's like, no, it's not like that. He's like, I just want to have enough for us. She's like, how much is enough? And she's like, pay off your debts with your own money. She's like, I'm using my money to raise my child. And the tweaker guy notices, he points to Thanos, see that crypto guy's talking to a girl. He's like, oh, they must be a thing now. He doesn't realize whatever. Karma lady, she's mad. She talks to Ma and her group that they're cursed. Guy's group tries talking about trying to figure out the vote. Guy wants to try to force people to leave, but 01 says that they have to be calm because if they push, it could spark a confrontation and things could get violent. So alarm goes off. Manager speaks. Basically, they would get 356 million won, which would mean 243,000 each. So they start voting, and it's getting like close to close. There's like neck and neck on the island. They find a hatch, they go up to it, they open up, it's booby trap, there's an explosion. So the vote is 47-47, then 48-48, 49-49. So then then it's like close. It's 49-50. So then the Guy's friend says that he's worried about 001 because he starts talking about like what happened during the game, but then he gets interrupted. So it's his turn. He looks up the score, and again Guy's telling Jung's telling Guy and the Marine kid about what happened. He votes, and it's a tie. So then the annoying guy's like, what do we do now? The manager's like, clause 3 to consent form. If it's a tie, players vote again. He's like, so you can think about your options. The second vote will be tomorrow. So it's time for more food. They get a cola and like some big like long thing. And Guy asks his friend, he's like, what were you going to tell me before? He like looks at 001, like kind of chumming it up with the others. He's like, oh, it's nothing. He's like, it's all of this. So he's like, we just got to get out as soon as we can. So he didn't tell him that he snapped that guy's neck. And Ma says that the people are probably going to wake up hungry because they just have like this dried whatever thing. And when they're hungry, they're going to want to leave. And so the son yells to everyone. He's like, just like tomorrow, he's like, you could be having beef. He's like, we just need one person to switch their vote. And then hundreds, he's like, they started arguing, whatever, going back and forth. The Marine kid, when they're arguing, he pulls up his sleeve. He's like, look, it's like Morel's a Marine. They like laugh at him or whatever. More people are just arguing, whatever. Guy's just sitting while people are arguing. He opens his roll thing and there's like a metal fork inside. So that was like, why does he have a fork? In the bathroom, stupid Thanos sits outside a stall while Wimpy Kid's in there. They said that he's, sorry, he should have said some stuff because I think he changed his vote. The tweaker like climbs over, says that they'll keep him safe. He opens the door, but then Thanos shoves him in. He talks about how he was going to jump off a bridge, and the suit guy gave him a card, so it was like divine intervention. And when someone gets in his way, he loses poop. Crypto guy comes up, tells him to leave him alone. And Thanos, he's like, you're still on my list. He's like, so go take a piss and leave. Then Crypto, he's like, hey, X is over here. These two were just threatening one of us a second ago. And then this other comes up. He's like, is that true? He's like, what the fudge, man? That's cheating. So then baby Thanos yells out. He's like, oh, they're trying to attack us. And Thanos asks Crypto, he's like, are you tripping? And Tweaker says that it's because that girl that he was talking to earlier. Thanos talks more crap, says that then he's going to go after the girl, whatever. So Crypto swings at him, but Thanos ducks. And then he hits Crypto. Fight starts off. Thanos like flips him down, hits him a few times, and then he starts choking him. And it looks like it's over. And then whoosh, Crypto guy had a fork, stabs Thanos in like the neck, like right under the jaw with it. That's the end of episode 6. So episode 7, friend or foe, Thanos is like strangers like blood. And Crypto like stabs him in the side of the neck. So he goes down. He pushes him off. Crypto starts to crawl like into the stall. Thanos starts grabbing him. He just kicks him. Tweaker goes down. He sees bloody Thanos. And he's not even worried about him. He sees his necklace, so he starts reaching for the necklace. But then he ends up grabbing the fork. And then at his opponent, he just like stabs him over and over again. So lots of banging, all this stuff like that. There's guards outside. They don't even care. So the PA goes off. 5 players were eliminated. More money drops down. So the board says there's 95 players. Owen Hunters, he's like, what's going on? And whatever. Tweaker runs in. He's like, hey, gang. He's like, we were in the bathroom and the X started attacking us out of nowhere. He's like, we were just standing there. 47. He's like, that's BS. He's like, you were the ones that started it, so you could win the vote. So then they decide they want to do a head count. On the boat, so it's night. There's like a storm going on. One guy gets up to throw up. He sees a light on. The captain's like doing something to one of the drones. He's like, hey, what are you doing up? He's like, that's my drone, isn't it? And the captain's like, oh, I wasn't getting any sleep. He's like, I came up here to find something, and that's when I saw this. Because before he was asking all these questions about the drone. And then the guy that got up, he's like, were you messing with it a second ago? He's like, oh, no, I just want to have a quick look. It's amazing how this little thing can move around like that. So he puts it away, and the captain's like, oh, you've been drinking. The guy's like, well, why are you pretending? And then the captain stabs him. He starts to fight back, and he stabs him again. And he like pushes him into the water. Then someone yells like, who's there? It's Choi. Captain makes up a story, tells him to go inside or he can get knocked over. So the captain must be in on it because he was messing with the drone, and he killed that guy. So they're counting. They have 47 O's, so it looks like they lost 3. X's say they lost 2, and so that means the O's have an advantage. So the PA says the lights out in 38 minutes. 47 says that he tells the X, he's like, nobody change your minds. Guy's just like silent during all of this. The 30-minute timer goes off. So then it's like 20 minutes. The Marine kid says the O's are looking suspicious. He says that, the guys in the bathroom, it got pretty ugly. Guy says that once the lights are out, that's when they're going to come for them. He's like, so killing them means that they'll win the next vote and adds more to their shares. So, the son, the kid, he's like, what are you going to do? 01 says they have to attack first, and that's their only chance because they won't expect it. And 47 agrees because he's like, our side has a lot of women and old folks, so we have to hit first. Guy doesn't want to play into their hands. And the friend's like, who's they? And Guy's like, the people who built this place. He's like, we should go after them. And the kid Marine's like, where are they? And Guy's like, up there. It's like up, top of the staircase. He's like, there's a man in a black mask who's the head of operation. He's like, if we can find him, we can end this. So 001, he's like, well, how are you going to end this? He's like, they have guns. And Guy's like, well, we'll use their guns. We'll take theirs. And 001 says it's too risky because even if they manage to get their guns, they'll still be outnumbered. And Guy's like, so what? He's like, we just fight. The others, die through the night and hope against hope that we make it. He asks 01, he's like, is that a really good plan? So when 20 says, asks if they stand a chance, and Guy says that, they won't suspect their side to attack because they'll be focused on other things. Then 001 asks how to get the gun. Guy says, wait for the fight to start. That'll give him an opening. So lights out. Basically what they do is they're going to hide under the bunks while the fight goes out. Guards are waiting outside. They call in more guards to wait, to come there. The boss is watching. The lights are out. Infrareds go on. So, and like during this, it keeps flipping back to Guy's plan because he says once the lights are out, they'll hide under their beds, and because the others will be out for blood. So then we see they start making their move, and it's like the O's. They walk. They're trying to sneak. They're walking right across the lidded like X and O's on the floor. So they start going on. Guy says that if any of them killed, could ruin their plan. And 001 is like staring at him. But Guy says that if they're missing any of them when the time to attack, they'll be setting themselves up to lose. But 001 says that if he's saying sacrifice a few for the good of the rest, and Guy just like stares at him. Because he says if they don't go after him now, they won't get another shot at leaving this place. So basically, they're supposed to let these people get attacked during the night while they hide. Because he's like, it'll be worth the sacrifice to mean they can actually put an end to these games for good. So 001's like, well, if that's the plan, then I'll do whatever you tell me. So at end present, 001 is like lying there waiting. He says that the fight won't last long. They'll want to step in before too many players get killed or injured. After that, they'll still need them strong enough for the next game. So there's like 20 guards at least sitting outside. We see that the tweaker guy, he goes after the tough girl because she voted to leave. He has the fork, he has her cornered. Wimpy Kid's like hiding up on one of the bunk. He grabbed a bottle. He throws it at tweaker guy, but he misses. And it like shatters at his feet. He looks up, but the Wimpy Kid ducks back. Tough girl picks up a big piece of the broken glass and moves towards, but it doesn't help because he overpowers her, stabs her, like in the base of the neck, like over and over again. Wimpy Kid just cowers back. So he did nothing. The manager radios for the soldiers move in. Guy says once the lights come back on, the guards will rush in the room and start getting the situation under control. So first they'll break up whoever's still fighting. They'll be busy so they won't pay attention to the dead. So right after they finish securing the room, they'll start scanning the bodies. So they stick little devices up to their necks to scan them to see like who's dead. He's like, then they'll wait until it's time to strike. They reach down to scan them, and then they grab them and start struggling. 001's like, actually, he like shoots a guard. He saves Guy. He almost gets shot. Masked officer tells him to retreat and seal the entrance. So the PA is like retreat. 5 guards make it out. 1 guard's like left at the door. So they tell him, get down on your knees, hands up. 47 wants to shoot the O's, and Guy's like, don't do it. But he's like, look at what these animals did. It's like, they're not even human anymore. He tells Guy he has no right to stop him from killing the greedy a-holes. He raises the rifle, but Guy grabs it. He's like, we didn't take these guns so we could use them like this. If you shoot them, then we're no better than the monsters who trapped us here. So 47 puts the gun down. He's like, everyone don't be afraid. It's all over. It's safe now. Come on out. It's like, we're not going to shoot anyone else. He's like, we just want to talk. So 120, so 120 was Special Forces. She got kicked out when she started transitioning because they didn't want whatever, transgender. But she's really good at taking command. So she tells them to collect the guns and the ammo, and then starts shooting the cameras. And mask officer says, assemble all the troops. The other guards, including 001, grab their rifles. The outer lockers, they proceed to the rally point. All the guns are like on the front of this table. Guy says that here's the deal. He's like, we're gonna head up the staircase up to where these masked men run the whole place. He's like, we'll capture the people who captured us. We're gonna put an end to this all. It's like they're gonna pay for everything they put us through. It's like, so please, if any of you know how to use a gun, you want to help take out these fudgers, step forward right now. No one really moves. Like pregnant girl, like shakes her head. The crypto guy tells him, no. Guy's friend steps forward. He's like, listen, I get it. You're scared. He's like, I know, because I'm scared too. He's like, I don't want to risk my life again, but I really don't think we're going to have another chance to leave this place alive. He's like, and they won't let us go. He's like, I say we fight our way out. He's like, together. So one X steps forward, says he'll fight with them, and then three more. The son starts to move him out, grabs his arm. She shakes his head. So they have all of the people they have. Guy thanks 001 for saving him. He's like, after this, buy me a drink. So 120 looks at some guys looking at their guns, just like that. So she steps forward. She's like, listen up. This is an MP5 submachine gun. And so she tells them what to do. She's like, this is how you release the ammo and the whatever like that. Because one guy's like, how'd you know that? And she says that she was special forces. So again, she says this is how you switch ammo, switching between single and sustained fires. So they should go to single so they don't waste a lot of ammo. Guy goes up to the pink soldier on the knees, mask off. And it's just this young kid. And Guy's friend's like, does your mom and dad know what you're doing here, kid? So Guy cocks the pistol back. He's like, you're going to take us to the guy who calls the shots around here. So they shoot the glass on the door. They unlock it. And then the wimpy kid's he stands over the tough girl. He's crying because he basically let her die. They go up some stairs. There's some guards are waiting to start shooting, and they duck. There's a big shootout in the big stairs room. The Marine kid, he's just sitting there plugging his ears. So he's supposed to be this tough Marine, but he's not doing anything. So they move on. Mask officers radios the soldiers to move. They can't let them to get to the management area. Guy asks the kid soldier if they're going the right way. He says just around the corner, but he's like, you need a mask to get through. So he has a mask in his pocket. So he takes it out. But then he locks eyes with 001. So he does he know who he is? But then he gets shot in the head because there's more soldiers across the way. Another one of the Guys, the resistance, they get shot. Marine kid's staring at the body. He's just freaking out. So Guy wants to go find a control room. 001 says that he'll go with, but Guy says that Jung, his friend, will go with him, and he grabs the kid's mask. Marine kids, he's just he's sitting there just shooting blindly over his head, and then he whimpers when he's out of ammo. It's just because he just wasted all. So 47 gives him another clip. He's like, don't waste the shots. So Guy and Jung, they check all these doors. They're all closets. They reach the end. There's a little scanner above. So Guy holds up the mask. Identity confirmed. So the door opens. It starts to close, but then Jung puts a gun down on the floor to prop it open. And he asks, he's asked him why did he take him instead of 001. He's like, I don't know. He's like, because you're my best friend. So he radios back that they reach a management area. They're going to go further up. So 001's listening. They shoot some guards. They move up some stairs to take more ammo. Mask officers orders them to take the stairs. Others are still in the firefight. Guy and Jung reach the bottom of the stairs where all the soldiers are. Jung radios that they're at the stairs. They could use more ammo. 001 says that they're low too. So Jung mentions taking more off the guards. So 001 and two others move to help. 120 says that she'll go back to the bunk to get more. But the kid Marine says he'll go since he's out, but it's because he's scared. Guy rushes up to the first set of stairs, gets some ammo from his fallen guards, getting shot at. Jung's trying to cover him and things like that. 001, 47, and this other guy, they move towards them. He's directing them where to go, and he looks up the camera, and the mask officer sees him. The kid Marine makes it back to the bunk room. He finds ammo. He's looking around, but his hands are shaking and everything like that. Guy he got grazed in the arm. 001 and the two arrive. Guy says that they can't make it up, so they should look for another way up. 001 says that he was scouting the area on the way in, so he's pretty sure there's another way up the back. Of course he knows this. He tells them to keep them busy there. He'll work his way around. So Guy offers him a clip, and 001's like, are you sure? So the kid Marine puts a bunch of clips in like a jack and he ties it up. But it's like, wait, why didn't they collect these in the first place? Because 120 said gather up all the ammo, but he finds a good amount. So he's carrying the bundle kind of like a football, and he's not even holding his rifle, but then he stops when he gets to the door because he hears a gunfire. His like breath's like trembling, he's like frozen. So the others in the big stair room, they're like wondering like where he is. 120 radios where he is. He just like drops the radio. So 120's like, something must have happened. She's like, I'm going to go back and check. 001 and the two others move. He sees some guards like from behind, and 001 radios to get their attention. And he's like, and they'll take them out from behind. So 47 and the other move up quietly, and then they duck to the side. 001 shoots them in the back. And he's about to shoot them again, but he's out of ammo. So he loads the other clip that Guy gave him. Guy radios him. 001's like, I'm sorry, it's over. He's like, they got us. And Guy's like, what's going on? You still there? And you hear like gurgling over the radio. He's holding it up to one of the guys that he shot. And then 001 like shoots a guy. So Guy's like, are you still there? So 001 changes the radio channel. He's like, let's wrap this up. So 120 sees the dropped radio. She reaches the bunk room. The son points to the Marine kid. He's cowering in the back, like covering his ears. And she's like, what's going on? He's like, I'm sorry, whatever. So she grabs him, starts to move, but then pink guards walk in. One like shoots a pistol up, like, everyone face down. So 120 loads up a clip, but Ma grabs her shoulder and says, this isn't a good way to die. So the others, they're kind of like blocked. They're out of ammo. One guy has one bullet left. He shoots himself in the head. Guy's like out of ammo. So at the big stair room, one of the guys, he says he's out, he's going to surrender. There's basically just like, I think 3 of them or 2 of them. So he like holds out his gun, he gets shot, and the other 2 get shot. Jung and Guy, they hold empty rifles. They say they surrender. The pink guards like hold guns up to them. The front man comes down the stairs. So he's like, player 456, did you have fun playing the hero? He points a pistol at him. Now, witness the consequence of your little game. Then he moves a gun to Jung's chest, and Jung like turns and looks at Guy. And Guy's like, no! And he's like wailing, and the front man walks away. The guards like pin him down. I guess I'd make him like stare at Jung, and he's just continuing to wail. And then Jung's body gets scanned. And then that's the end. And then there's like a little short end clip. The other players, I think, are brought out to play a game, and it's like the boy and girl robots, like it's like side by side, red and green lights. So I don't know if it's the others that are still alive. Is Guy still? So this is the weird thing. Now we're okay. So we're done with the show. It's weird because there's a 3rd season. So like I mentioned at the beginning, when they said that, that means that obviously Guy doesn't put a stop to all the games. But it's not over yet. So it's weird because it's almost like it's not a complete season, because season 3, it's whatever happens next. I mean, who knows? But what the heck was 001's, what was he doing? He's playing both sides. He killed like soldiers and didn't care. Why is he messing with Guy? Because it almost looked like he was helping him. I mean, he was becoming friends with him. Like all this just to manipulate him. I mean, I guess the way you look at it is their main thing is bring these people in, kill them, make them think they have a chance to win. I mean, some of them, they could leave. They could get some money, and they must be making more money off their organs of the dead bodies. So whether they kill them, allow them to be killed, it doesn't matter if they play the game or if they get shot or whatever. They're still going to harvest or whatever organs they can and make money off of that. Whether 001 wants to make things more interesting, and it's so weird. And what would have happened if they didn't make the rainbow thing? When he was locked out of the spinning room, do the guards all know who he is? Like not to do anything, not to shoot him? So, or is he just taking a big risk? Like maybe he wanted to play a game too, so he just thought it'd be fun and risk himself. So yeah, that was it got a little intense at times, and like I said, it was really good. And I remember I did like the first season, but I don't know. I felt more connected to this season, and I'm not really sure why. Maybe maybe I was more focused because I knew I was going to talk about it on the podcast. Because I don't think I talked about the first one on the podcast. I could be wrong, or maybe I just gave like a super brief overview. So this one here, I mean, we're talking like over an hour and a half. But yeah, so there you go. That was Squid Game 2. Let me know what you thought if you watched it. And I don't think we have a release date. I think they just said 2025. So we'll have to see. So I'm a little let down that, again, it's not over, but that's fine because, it's going to happen soon. So I'm okay with that. Hopefully you're okay with this episode because that is going to be the podcast for this week. So big thanks to Andrew Loken. He is a big, awesome supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. Last week, I did an Off of Mind about superheroes and mental health. This week, I'm probably going to go back to Amazing Spider-Man. I think it's a Dr. Octopus episode, so we'll have to see what's going to happen there. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck. You can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or 3. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. And again, also on Patreon, patreon.com/gmanfromheck, you can, if you want to, like, instead of buying a coffee, you can buy an Off My Mind, a podcast episode for the same price. And again, support the show or do what you like. So what's going to happen next week? That is a very good question. I'm trying to think what is coming out, if there's anything. I think it might be Den of Thieves 2. If I had a choice, I would probably pass on that. It might be a fine movie. I'm trying to remember what Den of Thieves was. I think, isn't it Gerard Butler? I could be totally wrong. Yeah, there's just like really nothing else coming out, so I'm kind of surprised with that. And there's nothing really on TV yet. I mean, Severance is not for a couple of weeks, so it may be that because I don't think there's anything else. So we're in this kind of weird time of the year where there's not a whole lot of stuff, but hopefully more stuff will be picking up. And then it'll just be I don't think there's any other TV stuff popping up, so it'll probably just be Silo, Star Wars, Creature Commandos, and that'll be it. So hopefully it'll give me a chance to get back in the swing of things as I go back to work this week. Hopefully you are doing well. Hopefully you had some good times. Hopefully you're taking care of yourself, and hopefully you remember, be good to each other.